Yeah, Nadia had absolutely been murdered, very horrifically so. It took a very long time. If you can put together context clues, it was not. Nadia did not have a good end. And so by this time I'm getting paranoid because I have this thing now where I'm really good at sniffing out death. Opens the door, and he's got blood all over him, and there's blood like all over the wall behind him. I don't know what the fuck it is about when you die, but there's absolutely something that exists within you that when you're dead, that whatever it is, that soul or whatever, it's not there.
Welcome to 1023 Podcast, from on scene to on air with those who were there. This episode is a continuation of episode 107 Part 1, where we get to know Detective Kiley Flores. If you haven't checked out episode 107 Part 1, we highly recommend you listen to it for a heaping helping of gangsters, kidnappings, prisoners, and blizzards. In this episode, we talk more to Detective Flores about her many experiences with death and how those experiences shaped her into the detective she is today. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, and you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. You can also listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and feel free to email us at 1023podcast@gmail.com with your ideas for future episodes. Lastly, the views and opinions of the individuals featured on 1023 Podcast do not necessarily reflect those of their employers or their profession. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, so we're back from a extended break. We last recorded 1023 Podcast, episode 107, part 1, featuring the lovely and talented Ashley Fithen, myself, Hunter Fithen, and our special guest, Kiley Flores.
Why am I not lovely and talented?
You are, but that's
Okay.
kind of like my thing with Ashley is
Okay,
like...
that makes sense. That is your wife.
Yes, and I think...
He's been calling me lovely and talented before we even started dating. So.
That's true.
Oh,
yeah.
That was his way to woo me.
Well, it worked,
Yes.
clearly. Here
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, I think I even mentioned that you're lovely and talented in like the acknowledgments of my old prom book.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
there's
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yes.
This is
yeah.
Shameless
cool.
plug.
Yeah.
Hunter Fithen has a book on
Yeah.
that you can buy on Amazon.
Okay, I shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
102 manly,
Moving
memorable,
on.
and manly ways.
Moving on.
I have a signed copy of
Moving
this
on.
book.
I'm a 31-year-old
I do
man
too.
now. I no longer talk about that.
I like this.
Get the book on Amazon.
So, anyways,
Don't do it.
Ashley, tell us about that time that you pretended to be a fucking bitch and injured in an active shooter situation.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, so we were gonna explain like our Hunter's voice. Kylie was mentioning.
Oh, yeah,
that
I'm sorry.
This is
Oh,
the
yeah,
first
that too.
time. This is the first time that Kylie's been on the podcast, and she
Yeah.
hasn't been sick, and so
Mhm.
her voice sounds good. And then Hunter was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
my
thanks.
voice doesn't sound good because
I did this.
I did
Yeah.
active shooting yesterday. Like active shooting.
I
No, he
didn't-
wasn't an active shooter.
No, he
Yeah.
was the suspect.
he
He's
was-
just he's hiding right now.
To be very clear, I did not commit an active shooting.
It was training.
Yes. Yeah. I was
Uh-huh.
a role player in some active shooter training for our local law enforcement. And I yelled a lot during said training for different scenarios and whatnot. So my voice, like, I think is overall fine, but it may sound a little off, like how it normally does. But on that note, one of the things we want to talk about real quick, just to kind of get warmed up before we get into this topic of what we're going to talk about in episode 107 part 2, which is all about 10-7s, which is, if you listen to the first part, a 10-7 is, in law enforcement lingo, is a dead body or death. So where was I going with that? Oh, yes. I played a dead guy for a few scenarios.
That's a good segue.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
I played a dead guy for a few scenarios in the active shooter training, which
Okay.
to really get into that role, you really have to
God.
take a lot of classes and like laying on the ground and not moving.
So
and
you're a bottom then, essentially.
yeah,
is what-
yeah,
okay.
basically,
Alright.
yeah. I just kind of laid there and I had other burly men come up to me and like grab me and move me around as they
Yeah.
wished and all that. So that was
Yeah.
the thing.
Fantastic.
But also, while I was giving my like best dead guy performance,
Mhm.
Ashley got to contribute as a role player in the active shooter training as well. And by golly, she did a great job. She delivered like an Oscar-winning performance. And you know what? You blasted me for the book thing, so I'm
Oh,
gonna blast
no.
you. So for those who don't know in the audience,
No, stop.
Ashley's
Yes.
also
Yes.
a semi-professional. Well, I'm just gonna say professional.
No, I'm not professional.
Hey,
by
I
any
actress.
paid
means.
to see
I'm
you.
amateur.
You're
I
fucking
but I did
professional.
not get
Yeah.
paid for
I
it.
saw you. Well, well,
I did not see.
she
I did
got
not see
paid
a single
for it.
cent of that.
Anyway, she's
I had to
an
write
actress.
a whole review on it and everything. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Well, so yeah, Ashley, that is something she dabbles in, is like stage production and everything, and she has actually starred on stage in a few different productions.
Mhm, mhm.
Most recently, a live performance of The Drowning Girls. So check that out if you're familiar or interested in that world. But anyway, Ashley, with her professional acting chops, came to the active shooter training and played
I
a
bet.
couple of different roles.
Yeah, I bet it was great.
It was great, but Ashley, tell us about
Yes.
the first
first-
scenario that you acted in.
So you have to keep in mind that I had my 2-year-old son, our 2-year-old son, with me.
He was with the training?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
was
was
in
there
the
too.
training.
Oh my god.
Like Fisher was like, "Bring him along," and I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, well, that makes
Okay.
it more realistic.
It was very realistic.
It was
yeah.
very realistic because
Yeah.
he gets in the way.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that sounds about right.
Well, and so the first scenario, they put me in a classroom and they gave me one of those fake injury
Mhm.
bands and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I'd been shot in the leg.
Uh-huh.
And Fisher says, "Okay, your husband's been shot dead in the hallway.
Mhm.
The shooter shot you in the leg, and you come in to this classroom and just take cover."
Mhm.
And with my 2-year-old, and I was like, "Cool." So I'm just sitting there in the corner where he told me to sit, and they say, "Scenario hot." And so I just start screaming.
Mhm.
I just, you know what? I have to make this as
Mhm.
real as possible. And if I'm gonna spend an afternoon playing an
Mhm.
injured person, I'm gonna
Oh my
I'm gonna
god.
play
I
an
feel
injured
so
person.
sorry
It
for
was
this
very-
class.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel
Yeah.
so sorry.
Oh, it gets better.
I am
So-
absolutely. Go ahead.
So I kind of start screaming and stuff like that, kind of start crying, but I don't see anyone. I don't hear anything.
Mhm.
And I grab my son and I like pull him to me. I'm like, "Okay, John, we're just gonna like sit here." And
Mhm.
so I kind of start crying, and poor John's like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
Like he's 2 years
Confused.
old, and his mom suddenly just starts bawling.
Mhm.
And so he just kind of, to his credit, he didn't really get in the way that much. He just kind of sat there like
Yeah,
really
he's-
confused, like what was
Like,
going on?
What do I do?
Why
Poor
is mom
kid.
screaming and
Yeah,
crying?
poor
I don't
kid.
understand. Well, and so finally, the cops came in, or they didn't come in immediately. I saw them walk past, and so I start screaming louder, "Come help me! Help me! I've been injured. You have to get me out of here. I have my 2-year-old baby in here." And I am just
Mhm.
freaking out.
Jesus. This sounds awful.
Yes. The students in this one got like a heaping helping of realism.
Yeah.
So, and meanwhile, I'm out in the hall, dead, and like this is my performance.
Yeah, I'm sure you're laying there going,
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be dead, but I'm chuckling every once in a while.
yeah.
So I'm a happy dead guy.
So yeah, I'm screaming my head off, "Get in here! Get in here! I'm bleeding to death. Take my son!"
Yeah.
And so they come in, with their little pistols and guns, and they're like, "Is anyone else in here?" And I was like, "I don't know," but now I just thrust my son toward
Oh
them, and I
my
was like,
God.
"Take my baby! Take my baby!"
Oh my god. These poor
Childhood
kids.
trauma 101.
Yeah.
Poor John was like,
Poor John.
he immediately started backing up, like, "No, no, what are you doing? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
He immediately starts clinging to me, and I was like, "No, take him!" He was definitely just a prop.
This poor kid.
This poor kid, yeah.
So he's confused. He's not crying. Give
Yeah.
him
He's
credit.
doing a really good job.
He
Yeah.
is just kind of
Yeah.
like, I don't know what's going on, but
Wow.
Yeah.
So they put a tourniquet on me, and they're like, "Oh no, that's good enough."
What?
Like, yeah, you'll be fine.
they put it above my knee, and I was like, "Yeah, it's good enough. Okay, cool."
Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
they go to they leave, and I'm like, "Where are y'all going? Y'all can't leave me here."
Oh no.
So
Yeah.
dramatic.
Again, I mean, I don't know where they're at in the scenario. I don't know if they've shot the bad guy. I don't know if they're still looking for the bad
No,
guy
so
or whatever
in-
like that. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm treating this like I don't know what's going on because I
Mhm.
don't. And so in my mind,
Yeah.
I am the most important person in the world because I've been shot, and my
Yeah.
baby's the most important person. So we have to get. And so I'm just like freaking out, trying to get them to pay attention to me.
Yeah.
While I
In-
know
in
that I'm
their-
probably not the
Yeah.
priority.
In,
I
in
don't
their in their scenario that they were given for the training for that one, they get a radio call for there's shots fired at a school,
Yeah.
and that's all they get is there's shots fired at the school. They don't know, they don't even have suspect or number of suspects or anything. So they get there, and in the scenario, that's one of the first things they encounter when they enter the building is the dead guy in the hallway, and then the screaming lady, and in this case, a toddler running around.
Yeah.
So
Oh God.
yeah, but then they still have to proceed after they address that and all that, and then there's some other stuff.
Yeah,
later
so
that
they
we won't
come
get
in and
into,
like put a tourniquet on me, and they kind of leave.
Mm-hmm.
But they eventually come back and they start helping me up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Get your son, get your son." I was like, "I got him, I got him." And they're like, "Put your arm around my neck," and I have to pretend like I'm really injured.
Yeah.
I'm just, and
Limping
I'm
along.
still just,
Oh God.
Hysterical.
I'm still.
It was really convincing. It was like blood curdling, god awful.
That doesn't surprise me. It's like when Clausen does it.
Yeah, Clausen's also.
Clausen
a good
also
actor.
gives it
Really?
her all.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was trying to make it realistic.
Like
yeah.
when we did it, because we had
Yeah.
to do the actual training.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like last year when we did, they always used Clausen as the.
She's a good role player.
as a good because that bitch can be like. Just
Yeah.
fucking scream her head off, and she'll run down the hall. She does not give a fuck. So they used her all the
I
time.
love that so
Like
much.
Yes.
real tears.
I
Yeah,
love
she's
that.
basically the soundboard for the whole fucking training that we have, and they're just like,
Yeah.
"All right, things are happening. Go, Clausen!" And Clausen's like, "Wow!" and then runs, and then she's screaming, and she's like, same thing, like they're over there, and like that's the other thing too, as you know, we're trying to make it as realistic as possible. So she's been told to like, hey, give them false information because a lot of
Mhm.
times
They don't
people-
give you correct information.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't give you
And
correct
not on purpose,
information.
they
They just don't know.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
truly believe that like, hey, that person went that way
Mhm.
when they
Yep.
actually went the opposite direction. But like stress is going to cause you to
Oh yeah.
misremember and things like that. So,
Mhm.
but anyways, the point is that it sounds like you and Clausen are nightmares, and I don't want to. I don't want to
Oh, well.
role play with y'all.
Before we
It
okay,
gets
you
worse.
gotta,
It
it
gets
gets
worse.
okay, I'm
worse.
sorry,
It
go
gets
ahead.
worse.
All right,
I'll
go.
speed it up.
Yeah, scenario 2 that you were part of.
Right. So
New character.
New character, yeah.
So well, hold on, I have to add that
her
when
name Karen?
they brought me into the after the first scenario, I'm limping, quotes,
Oh.
Mhm.
limping.
Yeah.
And they bring me into the safe room, whichever classroom that is, and Fisher's son is in there. I don't know how old he is.
yeah. He's
12 something
10 or
he's
12.
middle school.
Yeah.
He's just sitting there like super quiet. He's already had a tourniquet put on him, and so I sit down with John, and like I'm still crying, and then the police
Mhm.
officer left, and I turned to him and I was like, "That was fun." He turned to me and said, "It sounds like you had fun."
Yeah.
This kid knows.
Yeah.
And I told all the other role players because there was him and there was a few teenage girls, and there was some other guy that I didn't know. But I had
Yeah.
told them they were taking us to our second scenario, and they were explaining to us our characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I told everyone, I was like, I expect you guys to match my energy because I was the only one
Yeah.
screaming.
I told him he'd be the only one.
Yeah, the
like-
fucking theater school kid over here is like, listen up, gang. Y'all need to try harder. Like, shut up.
Give it your all.
Yeah, give it your all. Go team drama, whatever. Like, anyways, I'm sorry. Go
So
ahead.
the second scenario, I'm placed in a room with this kid,
Mm-hmm.
this little boy. Again, little, he's middle school, and my son. And the boy has been stabbed in the leg, and my son's just there. And I'm a teacher who hasn't been injured,
Oh.
but I'm just in there protecting my students. And Fisher says, "Be annoying."
Yeah,
That's like
okay.
the only
be
direction
a
he
total
says.
an insufferable bitch
Yeah,
to
just
these
he says,
officers.
just be
Yeah,
that teacher
okay.
who thinks she knows everything and who's trying to get in everyone's way,
Okay.
and just be
trying to
really
help
annoying.
but not helping.
A Karen, essentially.
Yeah.
And I
Great,
was like,
sweet.
yes.
All right,
I got
cool. You're the
this.
blank police department.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So-
go ahead.
So I was.
Thank you for bleeping that.
Yeah,
out
you're
yourself.
I said self-censored. Go on.
So I was like, okay, cool, I got this. And so they left, and they put the other people in the other room and stuff. I was, okay, scenario hot. And I don't scream this time because I'm thinking, okay, I'm a teacher protecting our students, and in a real
Mhm.
situation, I want to try to be quiet. But they had like these tricycles in this room,
Mhm.
Yeah,
like it was like
this-
some gym equipment.
This
so-
training's being held in like
an
an
old
old
elementary
school that's no longer in use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I pick up one of these tricycles, and I'm like
Mhm.
standing by the door, like, boy, I'm ready to start
Yeah.
like pounding whoever's coming into this room. And there's
Mhm.
2 doors in the room, and so one of the police officers comes into the other door, and I turn around, and the first thing I yell at him is, "Where the fuck have you been?"
Oh yeah,
And
okay.
he almost started laughing.
Yo.
And he goes, "Are you the only one in this room?" And I was like, "I've got 2 students in here. One of them's stabbed. He's gonna die. He's gonna bleed out." And I am just
Yeah, you're
flipping out on him.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, is
Just
there
sending it.
anyone else with a gun in here? I was like, why would we have a fucking gun in this room?
Oh god.
Yeah. She's being a bitch.
This is a school. There's not guns in the school.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what she was
Oh
saying.
my god. It's almost like I've been yelled at before by fucking bitches.
Yes.
It's,
And
Yeah.
meanwhile, I'm out in the hallway dead again.
He's still
Oh
dead.
my god, you had the easiest job in the
I know.
entire fucking
Yeah.
thing.
This time, instead of being shot to death, I was stabbed to death because in this one, they decided to do a mass stabber. But
That's
I'm out
great.
there stabbed to death and chuckling the whole time.
Yeah.
And she's being a bitch in this room.
I would be too.
So someone else comes in. One of the other officers come in, and she comes in, and I said, "You have to go help him. You have to go help him. He's my favorite student. He's been stabbed. He's bleeding to death." And I nearly, I start reaching for her tourniquet.
Trying to take stuff
And
off
Oh,
her belt.
yeah.
And
And
I'll
trying to
do it.
And
Like,
she swipes me away. She's
Yeah.
like, "Ma'am, you got to go stand over there." And she's trying to be kind of nice, and you
Yeah,
can tell
yeah.
she's really
Yeah.
she's really thrown off by my bitchiness.
Yeah.
Like
she didn't see that.
she
one
doesn't. She
coming.
did not
Yeah.
know what to do with me.
That's good.
And I was such a bitch. And I was in her face, and I was like, his parents are gonna be pissed if he dies.
Oh,
I
God.
was like,
Yeah, you're like, this
Yeah.
is a farmer's kid.
I was going
Pays her
off on her,
taxes.
and I triggered this woman.
Oh, yeah.
Like I triggered her to the point that she finally she turned to me and started yelling at me and was like,
Oh.
"Get your baby and stand over there."
Oh, wow.
Like, and I actually was like, "Okay, I'm sorry."
okay,
Wow, look at that.
command presence
You know,
activate.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I like it.
Mhm.
See, and it's great that you did do that, and you didn't just because a lot of times that does happen.
Oh,
We
yeah.
come across those people that they're basically chihuahuas,
Mhm.
and they're fucking yapping and yapping and yapping, and then as soon as you're very stern with them and you start yelling at them and you
Mhm.
have that very aggressive snap, then they're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I have reached the point.
Mhm.
That's the line. It's time for me now to get over here. And then of course you have the ones that just still are the way that they are.
Yeah.
But most people, whenever you have that firm no, they are like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And I was me personally, I was like, "Oh, okay, sorry, sorry for yelling at
You were doing a great
It
job
was-
though.
like it.
I'm just joking. Like it was just pretend."
I'm
So
sitting
I grab John and I go over to the corner, but I'm
Yeah.
still yelling.
still yeah.
I'm still trying to give them
Oh, yeah.
direction on what
Like
to do.
I'm sitting out in the hall, slumped up against the wall, and I can hear you in there. You're like, "You're putting it on wrong. That's not how a tourniquet goes on."
Yeah, it's like 3 fingers above the wound.
Yeah. I'm sure those two poor students that are in this class are like,
It's
"Shut
fuck-
up!"
Yeah,
Like,
probably. I knew I shouldn't have come to this class.
So
If it
one of
wasn't
them-
T-Cole mandated.
One of them is standing by the door trying to protect the door, and the other one is trying to do the tourniquet to the little boy. And I'm just standing there with John, the 2-year-old,
Yeah.
who's still, again, to his credit, is just
Mhm.
silent, looking around.
He's just like, "I don't know what's happening."
John is a champion.
Well,
Yeah.
he sees at one point
Oh, yeah.
there's a window in the classroom, and John sees Hunter
Oh.
slumped over on the floor,
Oh,
dead.
no.
And so he goes, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," and
Oh,
I said, "I'm
and-
sorry, Daddy's dead, honey. We can't go out there."
Oh, no.
Childhood trauma
No,
activate.
Oh, my God. Jesus.
He's
No.
not gonna remember any of this.
No.
okay?
No. Well, this does have a happy ending too. So,
I'm just standing there, and again I'm thinking I gotta keep being a bitch. I gotta keep being a bitch. So I
Yeah.
start yelling stuff.
Mhm.
When are we gonna get out of here? Y'all are taking too long. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da."
yeah.
And the guy at the door starts laughing, like he turns to me and smiles, and I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I can't handle this." Well, finally, they kind of stopped the scenario, and Fisher comes in and was like, "Hey, this needs to be happening right
Yeah.
now. She wants something to do. She's asking for something to do. Give her something to do."
Mhm.
And so they have me help get the kid.
Mhm.
So, but I've got John,
Yeah.
the 2-year-old, and so I was like, "Okay, cool." So the scenario starts again, and I pick up the kid, and I was like, "Here, take the baby." And the cop was like, "Okay, I'll take the baby. I'll take John." And so she takes John, and I pick up the kid, and then John does not want to be held by this
Stranger.
officer. John was like,
Yeah.
"Hell no!" And so
Yeah.
he starts wiggling and
That's
crying, and so
realistic.
she puts him
Yeah.
down. And to her defense, is the
Well,
baby
yeah,
really
it's-
part of the scenario, or
Uh,
is it just
yeah.
in the way? Like I
I-
felt
I would
did
have the
feel bad.
same questions if I was a student.
I should have
Yeah.
told them I don't care if you just
Yeah,
grab the
y'all can
baby.
pick him up,
You can
yeah.
pick him up, and if he cries, it's fine. He's not gonna be traumatized.
Yeah. No.
Like in a real scenario, you take the baby. He's
Yeah.
you take him away.
Mhm.
In my mind, he's one of the first ones you just take out. But and so he starts freaking out, and so the officer says, "Okay, you take the baby. I'll help the kid." And so we exit the room, and Fisher says, "No. She needs to help with it. She needs to help with the student." And so we switch again, and that's when another police officer tries to grab John, and then John sees Hunter again slumped on the floor, and he just makes a beeline
Yeah.
to Hunter and was like, "Daddy," and they're like, "Okay, he can sit with Daddy."
They're
It's
like,
fine."
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Just let him stop.
whatever. Just let it play out. So
It
I
was
magically,
actually very realistic.
yeah,
Magically
I
came
magically
alive.
came back to life and then sat and played with him in the
Like,
hall.
oh,
so.
John, Daddy's real name is Jesus. He's back. He's here to embrace you and hold you.
Oh, during
we made
Sorry, go
I'm
on.
sorry. go on.
we did make a joke about that after the first one of
Yeah,
these scenarios
okay.
because I was like dead on the ground forever, and then of course anyone who's been through alert active shooter training knows that as you come across people as an officer, even if they are deceased, like you want to go ahead and do something to, if they're dead and you can't really render aid to them, that's fine. But we put them in what we call the recovery position, just so that other officers coming in can just visually look real quick and know that this person has already been addressed. Like there's nothing that can be done for them, move on. But they put me in the recovery position, and then I laid there for, a few more minutes or whatever, and then when the scenario was over, I got up and everything. I'm like, wow, like the recovery position works. Like I was dead, and they put me in the recovery position, and I recovered.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's during I skipped a part during the first scenario when they were taking me out into the hall and I was limping and I saw your dead body. I started to freak out even more and I was like, "Oh my god, he's dead!"
Why is he chuckling?
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a great time. I'm glad y'all had fun.
It was a great time.
I had a lot of fun.
I think we probably would have complicated it further because I'm not much of an actress.
You would have done a really good job if you were like supposed to be the bitch. that was
Yeah.
getting in the way.
Okay. Well, depending on what it is, I can do good. But I'm the same way where I'm like, "Fuck you, you bitch." But anyways, fuck you.
Like Flores, we need you to be the ghetto person that like won't get out
Oh
of the
my
way.
god, yes! I spend the entire time doing
Yes,
this. And
yes, and keeps like quoting laws that don't exist.
Yeah, pretty much.
and-
Like, you
yeah.
didn't Mirandize me. That's not how
Yeah.
that works, you fucking idiot.
I plead the fifth. You can't search my car.
Yes, yeah. All the stupid jailhouse lawyer shit that they say.
Yeah. Like, okay.
Doesn't matter. The shit's gonna get dropped anyways because you didn't Mirandize me. Like, oh, okay,
Okay.
idiot.
All right.
But yeah, so, but when I think about that, I think of like if Andrea had been there
Mhm.
and was
Yeah.
in this scenario, they wouldn't have understood her accent. Probably.
That would have been even
Well,
more
again, that would have been
confusing.
a
That would have
great
been great.
scenario.
Yeah. So she would have just started speaking Spanish, obviously, which she's very fluent in.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
if you're white, then you're just like, oh, I get.
Like I don't know what you. I mean, no speaky.
Yeah,
Again, I think that would have been a great scenario.
Yeah,
like,
It
probably
would've
would have been.
Yeah.
Would have added some because she was
It would've been.
excited to do it, but I was like, no,
Yeah.
we already made plans. Goodbye.
Oh, there'll be more trainings in the future.
Yeah, oh yeah,
So.
and I don't want to be a part of them still, so don't volunteer me for them. I want to mind my own business.
I
Yeah.
will love to volunteer.
Oh
I'd
my
love
gosh,
to yell
Ashley.
at them. They were.
Oh, there will be more opportunities in the future.
I know
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
was laughing at me afterwards. They
Yeah,
were
oh,
probably
yeah.
super pissed at me. Like, and
Yeah.
I told her
What,
because the
yeah.
police officer who like yelled at me. I went back to her after the scenario and I was like, "Listen, They told me to be annoying, so I'm really sorry."
Yeah, it's nothing personal. Yeah.
Yeah, well, she knows that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
They know what to expect when you
It-
bring in live people. Like, you get one of two options. There's people like yourself that take it to the nth degree and do a real good job acting. And then there's people like the rest of us that are just like, I'm dead.
Oh, help
Like,
me!
Yeah.
I'm out of the scenario. I'm dead. Or the
Yeah.
next person's like, I have been shot
Yeah.
in the left leg.
Well, that's not like it's not very realistic training because we've all been to those trainings too, where like you show up and like the person who's like shot or dead or whatever is just kind of like sitting up against the wall on their phone,
Mm-hmm.
and so like
Yeah.
the students come in and they're like, hey, like sir, whatever, and like they'll kind of look up from their phone like, oh no, I'm dead. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like oh,
You know,
okay.
I've made up my
Yeah.
mind. The next scenario that I get to be an injured person in again,
Yeah.
I'm going to mimic the last, like the dude that you and I put a tourniquet on that got shot in the leg. I'm going to mimic that guy. I'm going to base my experience as that injured person based off the real life scenario of that guy.
What did this
Yeah.
guy do?
This guy,
Go
so
on.
well, it sounds dickish, but we've been doing this shit a long time. Seen a lot of different injuries and stuff like that, and of course that's subject matter of this
Yeah,
episode.
of this episode, yeah.
And this whole thing involving your podcast is telling cool cop stories. Well, basically, long
Mhm.
story short, this dude got shot in the leg, like from a domestic, with his roommates and shit.
Yeah,
But it really wasn't that bad. Like
no,
he
very
was,
superficial.
yeah, very superficial. You could tell just by looking at it. Like it was a little difficult to locate because the clothes that he was wearing kind of obscured it.
Yeah.
But even whenever we're like touching his legs, trying to find the bullet wound, like the puncture and stuff, because we're thinking of an actual like through and through.
Yeah, well, at first we thought he got shot,
Yeah,
but then later I think we determined that
It's a
the
ricochet.
round hit the ground and ricocheted up and hit him.
yeah.
So,
But we were commenting on it in real time. You can hear it on our body cams. We're like, "Where's all the blood? Like, I
yeah.
can't find. Like, there was some, but there's not coming from a central location.
Yeah.
Well,
this-
this dude is in pain because like
Yeah.
it ricocheted up and it smacked the crap out of his shin bone,
Yeah, and then
and so there was
bounced.
blood, but I don't know. It's hard with clothes and everything on. Like we're trying to figure out like where exactly he was shot, and the whole time he's screaming bloody murder. But
like he's right. It kind of went in a little bit, but it went in at the front part of the top part of the calf,
Mhm.
hit the shin bone and bounced back out. So and then the bullet itself, the jacket, was in the fucking pants. Like that's
Yeah.
what I'm. Yeah, that's
Like
what I'm saying.
stuck in his jeans.
It was stuck in his jeans, so like it didn't go through and through. It didn't like bounce all around the fucking leg.
It was a weird one.
It was it was definitely weird. We hadn't seen that one before,
Yeah.
but by all intents and purposes, that one was not that fantastic.
No.
So-
he was just a funny one.
Yeah, because oh my god,
Was he just freaking out?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
he was freaking out as if like these were his last moments on Earth.
Yeah,
But in reality, he was gonna be fine.
yeah,
But like out of an abundance of caution, the first thing we did before we started really trying to check him out is we put a tourniquet on his leg that blood was coming from. And for those who may not be aware, getting a tourniquet put on you, as helpful and life-saving as it is, like it hurts really bad if it's put on correctly.
I
like, 'cause
imagine maybe that tourniquet was more painful than the actual
yeah.
wound
The
itself.
actual wound itself,
it might have
absolutely.
been.
Yeah, because he didn't enjoy it because we're sitting there
Yeah.
and he and I we would play it together. We're assisting each other, whatever. So we're putting it on, and then we get to the point where I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna cinch it now," and he's like, "Okay." He acknowledges
Crank
that,
it.
and I crank it, and as soon as I do,
Like
yeah, like,
blood curling, like the tortured screams of the damned.
Yeah, oh my
Like-
god. Yeah. So he does like what a lot of people do in that scenario. He like keeps trying to get up and he's
Yeah.
like reaching.
Yeah,
for
he's trying to get
things.
it off.
He's trying to push it off.
Yeah.
Like he's reaching for his leg and stuff. So
Yeah,
but
and I
basically-
told him before, I was like, "Hey, bro,
Yeah.
like this is gonna hurt."
Yep.
And he was like, "Okay, do it." So
yeah, yeah, you get the point. But basically, I'm gonna be that guy.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm gonna
just
be that
scream
guy.
bloody murder.
That
Yeah.
dude, yeah, you would, yeah, he's exactly right. You would have thought he lost like a leg and that he was
Oh yeah.
some World War I vet that just stepped on a landmine and blew off his fucking lower half or whatever. That dude
Yeah.
was fucking screaming.
He would have been a great extra for like the
Yeah.
opening scene of Saving Private Ryan.
yeah, that's how fantastic it was.
That's how fantastical it was. And then whenever you do this in the training, when the students put a tourniquet on you, every single time they turn the windlass, you need to just scream even louder.
Thanks. That's gonna be my goal the next time I have to do shit.
Yes, that was a good one.
All right, I'm going to look at this because this is from Andrea.
Ah, okay.
So you can segue now into your intro or whatever you want to do.
Well, fantastic. So, on the note of like active shooter training and acting like injured people,
And
acting
dead
like
people.
dead people.
Ooh, there's the
Oh,
segue.
There's the segue. So yeah, we're gonna talk about dead people in
So
episode 10-7.
does
part two.
10-7 mean dead person?
Yeah,
It means there is a dead body.
Yes. So, as we've stated previously on this show, the 10 codes, which a lot of modern agencies don't even use anymore, but it's kind of a retro thing and it's fun. But the 10 codes are often different in different parts of the country and even different parts of the state. Different jurisdictions will use the 10 codes will mean different things sometimes. But on this show, like generally, we're like, hey, well, the vast majority of agencies, like this 10 code means this. And at least where we work, 10-7 means that someone is in fact deceased. So like just in our workplace vernacular, like we would refer to someone like if we show up to a car accident and the driver is in fact dead, like they're not just injured, they're clearly dead, they're decapitated, whatever. Well, like other officers who are arriving on scene to assist and everything, like we would tell each other like, hey, the driver's 10-7. Like they're done. Like there is no point even trying to render aid to them. Like they're gone. Or like if we go do a welfare check and we go in and there's a dude who's clearly been dead in there for 2-3 weeks and he's like melting into the carpet, he's 10-7. There's nothing we can do for him. No amount of tourniquets or CPR is going to save that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 10-7 means dead. And then also in this area, weirdly enough, not a lot of people use it like this, but I think it's a more old school thing. A lot of people, when they go off duty, will say that they're 10-7. But they'll say they're 1042, which means that they're off duty. And then they're, for whatever reason, they'll add on 10-7.
Yeah, 10-7 mean like for them it's out of service,
Okay.
which to me is redundant. You already have 42.
Like, you're off duty and out of service. Like, well, clearly you're out of service. If
Yeah,
you're
you're off duty.
Yeah.
But mainly I'm kind of one of those people that believes in like
There's a superstition.
yeah,
to
the
it,
superstition there. Like I hate being like, well, I'm 10-7. No, that's
You're
a
not-
dead body.
Yeah.
I'm
don't
fuck
call
off.
yourself 10-7.
I'm not calling myself 10-7. So
Yeah.
I never do that. Whenever I go in service or out service, it's always 41 or 42.
Yeah.
I never use 10-7. But yes,
No.
some people in this area use that.
And by some people, there's like maybe 2 that still do that.
Yeah, not a whole lot of people do it.
Yeah, not a whole lot. But
So
yeah, that's what it
Kylie's
means.
an expert
Oh yeah.
on 10-7 mainly because you've seen a lot of 10-7s.
Yeah. And there's
Unfortunately.
I don't know about unfortunately.
I guess some of them
Kylie
were.
likes it.
I
some
like
of
dead
them
bodies.
were fortunate.
Yes, some of them were unfortunate. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Like some of them, not so ecstatic to have been like, yeah, I was there for that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are others, of course, that I was like, yeah, that was really fucking cool. I'd do that again. So,
Okay, on that note,
Yeah.
when we're talking about some of them this, some of that, like, there's been a bunch.
Yeah.
And so you've been a cop for coming up on, well,
yeah,
you're approaching a decade.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you're,
I'm
know,
like at, I'd have to look. I think it's like 8 or 9 years right now.
Yeah, okay. And then, as we discussed previously in the last episode, 10-7
Mhm.
Part 1, you're a detective now,
Yep.
and what we do at work is we work all the major crimes, felonies, deaths, all manner of stuff.
Yeah.
Even if we find out it's not a crime, if it's an
Yeah.
unintended death, we investigate those. But
Yeah.
to kick this off, the question is coming is, can you tell us about when you first became a cop?
Mm-hmm.
What was your first 10-7 call? Like, what was the first dead body type situation that you got called to and that you experienced?
My first dead body as a cop, because I had them before,
Mhm.
but my first dead body as an active duty law enforcement officer
Yeah.
was actually one that's not going to be super interesting for the audience, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
because as you already know,
Yeah.
going into this, it's actually a cold case murder.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
the time, it was obviously not a cold case. It was something that had just
Yeah, it's
occurred.
fresh.
Yeah, so this is very early on in my career, clearly, because this was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's a cold case murder. And for obvious reasons, it's not something that I can divulge a lot of details about, especially to the rest of the world.
Mhm.
It's my hope that in the future, of course, it gets solved, and then we can absolutely hash out everything that I saw and did and all this kind of stuff. And we
Yeah.
can really get down to the nitty gritty of it. But basically, on a particular date and time, in a particular area, I can't, yeah, I know, I can't get
Mhm.
too
Treading
detailed.
very lightly.
Yeah.
Naturally.
With all that being said, I got called to a residence where I worked for a man that was found dead. So show up and I'm like, yeah, clearly this person is dead. And my main thing that I did for that scene, since I was brand fucking new, like I was still in training, I was like my second week, or maybe I'd been a month or something like that. In training, my primary job was to go inside, clear the house, kind of do a cursory look of stuff, and then shut everything down for the Rangers and for CID and stuff like that. So that was my primary function. I went and talked to some neighbors and things like that, identified people, but for the most part, my job back then was,
Mhm.
hey, who are you? No, I can't tell you what's going on. Go away.
Mhm.
Or, are you the news? Great. You're going to call the police department later. I'm not telling
Mhm.
you anything. Goodbye.
Yeah.
like-
I'm patrol. I'm here to secure things.
Yeah, so
yeah.
that was my primary function then. But basically, of course, I'm not going to give away too many details for that. I think, and to kind of make it more interesting for the audience, I think I know who it is.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Like, I think I know who did it.
Oh,
but
who
it's
did
it's a
it?
cold
It's-
case.
yeah.
It's not
Cold case.
solved.
It's one of those cases
Okay.
where, like, probably anyone who looks at it, like, you don't have to be a genius to tell what happened and
Yeah.
who did it, but proving it is another.
So
yeah, it's an
you
entirely
can't.
different
You
thing.
can't. You probably can't necessarily tell us how
Yeah.
he died, but like it wasn't.
He-
You looked
I
at him and
think
you're like, yeah,
it's clearly
this
a
is
murder.
how he died.
Yeah.
Clearly a murder.
Yeah, it's clearly a murder. There's clearly
Yeah.
one way that he died.
You'd be safe to say that, like, he was obviously killed with a weapon.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's that.
And so, yeah, basically, clearly is a murder. He didn't do it himself. And it clearly was done with a very specific weapon
Mhm.
that we know. And
It's cold case.
it's cool. Yeah, so without getting, of course, into the nitty gritty, initially this my agency caught it. And then after a while, that one was a little weird. I don't think it was originally given to the Rangers off the rip. I can't remember, though, so don't quote me on that.
I don't know. That was before my time here. So.
Yeah, I can't remember. So, but eventually it left my agency's hands and it went to the Rangers. And then from there, because for people that may or may not know, the Rangers have to cover a lot of ground and
Yeah.
they are in charge of all kinds of shit. They do major crimes and stuff, but they also are in charge of officer involved shootings and things like
Mhm.
that. So they have a
Yeah.
lot on their plate. and it's not the Rangers' fault, but basically that case went to the Rangers and they didn't do anything with it that I know of, at least.
They might have had more
Yeah.
important.
Oh well, they
higher-
did
yeah.
because not too long later we had an officer involved shooting, and they came out and investigated. So obviously that one is going to take more precedence,
Mhm.
but and people don't understand that. But it's because that cold case murder, it's already happened. It's over and done with.
Yeah.
They'll get to it when they can get to it. However, this officer involved shooting, you have to go deal with this now because that officer, it has to be figured out whether or not they were guilty or innocent.
Mhm.
Yeah, are they justified?
Yeah, are they justified or not justified? Because if they're not justified, then obviously you want to fire them, get them gone,
Yeah,
whatever, because that's going to
You
create a
need
bunch
to
of problems.
potentially prosecute them and all that.
So then, okay, I have a question for this. This is your first dead
Mhm.
body call,
Yeah, yes.
and though you can't divulge a lot of details about it,
Yeah.
is it your first dead body to ever see?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, this is just my first one as a cop.
As a cop, okay.
Yeah, because I know, because
We had talked
you
about
had some, you had
from
some in the
prison
jail,
and
in the
jail.
prison,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but this is my first one as a cop, and this
Yeah.
is a cold case murder that, of course, can't really talk about. It's an interesting case. I do believe I know who did it, but he's right. Proving
Yeah.
it is something entirely different.
And I believe that one day we're gonna sit back down here and be able to talk about it
Yeah.
on the podcast.
Not too long ago, a particular person with a particular agency we won't divulge was in our office, and just out of the blue, because we were talking about other things going
Mhm.
on in the community, out of the blue, he's like, "Hey, does anyone know about this thing?" And I immediately was like, "Me, right here.
I know about it. I
I
was
know
there."
about this thing. I was there. This is the person that did it." And he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I want to talk to you." When I have, and then of course, as it happens, we got to talking about that. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get to that case after I do this one thing." Well, then standard law enforcement, how the world works,
Mhm.
immediately like 3 fucking clusterfucks happened that he had to
Yeah.
go deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So the case remains cold right now.
yeah, basically like
But
that's where we're at. So I know it's not super
Mm-hmm.
interesting, but yeah, my first one ended up being a cold case
being
murder.
a
Wow.
cold case murder. Now,
Still
okay.
not solved.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still not
still
solved
not.
to
Not
this day.
yet. We're working on that
Yeah.
though. So,
Hopefully, but yes, as of this moment, my first one is a murder.
Yeah.
I know it's not super interesting to be like,
well,
yeah, it's a murder.
You-
You can't know anything about it. Go away. Sorry,
it is a
audience.
bummer. But you mentioned something too that I think is a good segue into.
Hmm.
So, okay, that was your first 10-7, but
Yep.
you mentioned an officer involved shooting.
Oh,
that, that you got to be a part of.
Yep.
A small part of that whole process.
Hmm.
So you should talk. This is another one of those weird things where
Yes.
we can't talk about everything, but tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that, just because it is interesting and part of it is funny in a dark way.
Yeah. I won't. I'm because the goal is to hopefully get that person to tell that story because it's
Well,
actually
I want
their
him on the
story.
podcast so badly.
I
like
know.
ever since we started this, he's always been like he was in my top 3 list of guests from
Yeah,
the very
he's like,
beginning, and
"No."
he just doesn't want to do it. And
Yeah.
I understand that,
You're
but
right.
maybe I'll talk him into it one day.
Yeah, maybe. So I'm not gonna like give away all the deets because that's his story to tell ultimately about all the shit that happened. But with my involvement, basically one day, I'm not even a year in, I think. But basically, I show up, or I get ready for work one day, and this was in early part of the year, so it was real cold.
Mm.
But anyways, I get up, and I was day shift at this time. This had happened during nights. And so I wake up, start my regular tour of duty. I get ready. I get to the office early. And as soon as I get to the office and I log into the CAD system, which is the system that shows all the active calls.
Computer assisted dispatch.
Yeah, thank you. All the stuff that shows active calls, things that people are working on, whatever. I see that there's one fucking call on the CAD and everyone is there, which is never a good sign.
No.
When you start seeing the top brass are there, or
Yeah.
the top brass have been notified and whatnot, you're always like, oh, okay, that's not good.
Yeah, something bad happened.
Yeah, so long story short, I log in and I look at it and it says officer involved shooting and it gives the location, who's involved, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, fuck me and a bitch ass. So I start looking at stuff and I was like, oh, God. And they heard me go 41. So they immediately called me and said, hey, Flores, come over here. This is what's happened. This person killed this person. It's an officer involved shooting. You're going to come help with this. Like, get over here right now. And so I was like, okay, great. So I go to the office, get all my shit, my body cam, whatever the fuck, I go over here. I get to the location. There's all these fucking people here. They start divvying out stuff because there's people with a crime scene log. They're just logging who's in the crime scene, who's coming out of the crime scene, what they're doing, things like that. The Rangers are there. They're investigating all this kind of crap.
Mm-hmm.
So I show up, and what the job they gave me was like, hey, you're going to go stand on the north side of the crime scene and you're going to secure the fuck out of that. If anyone comes over, they're not going to know anything. You're going to sit basically the same thing I did for the murder.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, not a problem. Well, the north side of the crime scene happened to be like right next to where the majority of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there and there's this pickup parked in a bush in a front lawn. It's very clearly fucked up. It's got bullet holes and shit in it. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm next to the cool pickup. There's a shit ton of blood inside the pickup coming out of it, like on the ground, on the sidewalk, with like some brain matter and shit like that. Like there's all kinds of shit everywhere. So I'm standing there, and I stand there for a long time. And of course, Looky Loos come out and we're, hey, what's going on? Nothing. Goodbye. You know, like
Shark attack.
yeah, shark attack. Thank you. Can't talk about it. A shark bit this kid's like eyeball off. Go away.
Wait, what? What's the shark attack?
It-
I feel like I need to
just a
ask about this
joke.
analogy before.
It's like a common like inside joke in law enforcement. Like when you go to like a wreck and there's like dead people and stuff, and everyone passing by is trying to look, and they're like, "What happened, officer?" Like you get that question so much, eventually you just start to have fun with it. You're like, "Shark attack, move along."
Yeah.
Oh,
It-
okay.
yeah,
okay,
it's
okay.
like clearly this is an accident.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
like,
and that-
obviously these cars crashed, and like you don't need to be stopping up traffic looking at these dead kids.
So
Yeah.
you're just being sarcastic.
Yeah,
okay.
but yeah, you're just
Shark
being
attack.
being an asshole because
Yeah, you're about to create another accident.
Yeah, exactly. Because well, those people like, hey, what happened here? Clearly, it's a fucking accident. Move on.
Mhm.
And then what he's saying too, like, yeah, there's gonna be dead bodies and stuff in the road and shit.
Yeah, you need to move them along. It's
Yeah.
like shark attack. Move on. Like,
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
all that is.
Okay, I get
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
just
It's
yeah.
stupid, and like no one, very few people actually do that in real life. Like actually,
Yeah.
we're
Right,
usually
right.
more
But
professional.
but there will be people that do it.
Yeah, and every
every
once
time.
in a while, like if someone is being like a just a super difficult person on a scene or something, like and they're being real snarky, cops are humans too. Sometimes
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
snarky back. You know,
Yeah.
not professional, but it happens.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
So, but
so you're
anyway,
basically shooing people away.
yeah, I'm telling
Yeah.
people there's a shark attack and they're fucking off.
Yeah.
And I'm just protecting the integrity of the crime scene, and I'm just hanging out. And of course, I'm looking at stuff, and I'm because like again, I enjoy crime, and I enjoy looking at things and investigating things. So I'm like, oh wow, look, bullet casings here, here, and here. So this happened here, and this happened here, and this is why this is it. So like, I'm having fun with it. I'm sitting here looking at stuff because I haven't talked to the officer involved at this point. By this time, actually, we weren't even friends. I just knew of him because he worked on the shift that relieves me for the night
Mhm.
shift, but I didn't really like talk to him ever. So I was like, okay, this involved this person, you know, whatever. He's good. He's talking to the Rangers now, like whatever. So I'm doing my own thing. Well, eventually I'm there for fucking ever. They're still actively doing things in the crime scene, like coming up with bullet trajectories and stuff like that. Like the Rangers are
Mhm.
doing all kinds of scientific nonsense. So I'm minding my own business on the north side. Well, eventually the sun gets way high in the sky because this happened at like 1 in the morning and it's like 11 a.m., 12, 1 p.m.
Wow.
And I'm still there. So I'm hanging out. And yeah, these crime scenes take a long time to fucking process.
Yeah.
So I'm there. Well, because we live in the most random climate ever, it was super fucking cold in the morning and then blisteringly hot in the daytime.
Yeah.
So I realized this is how I figured out, Ashley, that internal human organs and like blood and stuff, when it is baking on the sidewalk, smells like fish guts baking on a rock.
Ew.
It's-
So where was the body?
it was gone. Like they, eventually.
Okay, so okay. I
Yeah.
thought there was a body.
No. Like we didn't just leave it. That one is one that like if it needs to be left there for reasons, they'll leave it there for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But because this one was also like it's in a residential, it's in the middle of the fucking road.
Mhm.
They weren't gonna just leave that guy there.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
for the public.
So they
to
removed the
see.
body, but his guts
His brain and his
Yeah.
blood and
are,
his
are
guts and
cooking
stuff.
on the sidewalk.
Yeah, they're cooking inside
Oh.
the car and on the sidewalk and stuff. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, because I like fishing, and I was like, I've smelled this smell before. This reminds me of something. Yes, this reminds me of fish guts baking
Oh my
on a
gosh.
rock after you clean the fish and whatever. So I was like, wow, interesting. Humans equals fish guts. Like, great. So I pocket that in my knowledge book for later.
Mhm,
Well, I'm
mhm.
sitting there minding my own fucking business. Well, eventually, this fucking cat, like, jumps out of a bush and into the crime scene, and I see it. So I was like, oh, fuck.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was like,
An
Mr.
intruder.
Whiskers. What? Yeah, an intruder. I was like, oh no, what the fuck? Well, and I know how animals are, so I was like, this fucking bitch is gonna go over to this pile of fucking organs and shit and start eating it. So I was sitting there looking at this cat and I was like, hey, like, you should really run off, pal. Like, skedaddle.
Shoo.
Yeah, exactly. The cat's like, nah, fuck you. So it meanders around for a bit, and it's like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, by this time, I called my supervisor and I was like, hey, I don't know if you want to like get animal control for this animal or whatever the fuck. Like, I don't know if it belongs to someone, whatever. But like, it's in the
There's
crime
a cat in
scene.
the crime scene.
Yeah, there's a cat in the crime scene. It's fucking doing shit. I don't really want to go into the crime scene to go get it because I don't want to fuck up anything that they're doing. But like, it's hanging out by like the primary source of the crime scene. He's like, all right, well, what is it doing? And so as soon as he asked that, the cat is like, I'm gonna jump up inside the pickup. So he jumps inside the pickup and then goes to the front seat, like the driver's seat, where there's this pool of blood and brain and stuff. And it's just like, this looks delicious.
Oh, gross.
And just starts munching on this dude's fucking brain and blood and stuff. And so I'm on the phone with my supervisor, and I was like, "Oh my god, the cat is eating this guy's like blood and shit." I was like, and this was a meth head that got killed too. So that brings me to the next joke, is that I'm like, "Oh my god," because I'm freaking out now. I'm like, "Do you want me to shoot it? I'll shoot it. Like I'll kill this cat." He's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Shoot this cat? Why?" And I was like, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, listen, this is patient zero. This cat is over here eating fucking meth head brains and blood and shit. It's gonna leave this scene. It's gonna turn into a fucking zombie. It's gonna bite other cats. Those cats will like the taste of human flesh. They're gonna go out into the fucking world and eat all of the grandmas on this fucking street. And then it's just gonna fucking spread."
We're gonna have zombie cat
Yeah,
apocalypse.
yeah, exactly.
Meth head zombie cat.
Yeah, exactly. So I go through this whole long fucking rant. He's like, "Do not shoot the fucking cat. It'll go away eventually." Well, sure as shit, that cat is there for a long time. It's like, nom, 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 nom. Delicious. I'm gone. And then it fucks off and runs away into the night. And I'm quite certain it's responsible for the death of other people. But I can't prove it.
We'll get to those cases later.
Yeah, we'll get to those cases later. But yeah, that thing fucked off into the night. And I was like, well, not the night. It was the daytime by that time.
Yeah, still.
But yeah, that thing fucked off eventually and it went
had
off
a
to probably eat more humans.
Tasty lunch and
Yeah, and then it fucked off.
That's
Yeah, okay.
disgusting.
Yeah, well, animals are. They'll eat their owners. They'll eat random people. Like, and at the
Yeah.
end of the day, animals are animals, and they're gonna be like,
Oh yeah. When they get hungry, they find something to eat.
yeah.
I don't know who was telling me about the difference between dogs and cats. Is that dogs, like if their owner
Oh.
dies and just
Well,
sits in the house,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's case by case basis, but
If they get
dogs-
hungry enough, they
yeah,
will
Generally,
eat
dogs
you.
and cats will
yeah.
eat the owner
Yeah.
if they get hungry enough, but dogs at least feel bad about it because
Yeah.
they'll start with the feet
that's
or
been
the hands,
well,
but cats will just go straight
yeah.
for the face.
So I've
Animal
seen a
psychology.
little of that, and I know enough people who have seen more than I have to know that, like, of course, it's case by case basis. You can't say it's like this 100% of the time, one way or the other. But generally speaking, I think most people who have been to scenes like this will agree that when someone dies and it's unattended and like they died by themselves and they have pets in their house, a lot of times cats will start eating their owner's body pretty quickly after they die, like without much hesitation, and they'll eat like the soft parts of them, like their face and their nose and stuff like that. Whereas dogs, a lot of people say that they'll at least wait after their owner dies for a while until they're like really, really hungry.
Yeah.
And then once they're really, really hungry, they haven't been fed in several days, you can tell the dogs maybe have a little compassion. They don't really want to hurt the person. So they kind of eat like parts of their legs, their feet, or their hands, or whatever.
The
They
fucking
don't.
crotch a lot of times.
Yeah, the crotch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a general like rule of thumb. Is a lot of people say that like when you die, like you're gonna be eaten by your cat as soon as it gets hungry,
Yeah.
whereas your dogs are gonna eat you
Yeah.
when they're really, really desperate.
Yeah. It also depends on the temperament of the dog. Obviously, if you have like
Yeah.
a piece of shit owner that treats their dog like shit, that
Yeah,
dog is,
there may not really be a bond there.
is more inclined to
Yeah.
be like, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
Nom, nom, nom,
But if it's like an old person who has
Yeah.
like had this dog as a companion for a decade, then like those are really sad because
yeah.
you eventually go to that welfare check and find this person is deceased and rotting and dog's been eating them for a couple days.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Yep.
So sad too, because usually in those situations they like everyone always asks like, well, what do you do with the dogs? And
Kill
like,
it.
Yeah, they usually get euthanized.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Really?
Kill it.
Yeah.
It's tasted human blood now. It's just like the cat. It's going to go out and kill more humans. That's why you do it. You
Yeah.
old yeller their bitch ass.
it's terrible. It's so morbid. Which okay, that's a good segue. We're
Okay.
gonna keep hopping on segues the
Great.
rest of this episode.
Yeah,
because
start tallying that shit.
yes,
Ashley,
like
thank you.
segue. But a segue into that. So a disclaimer that I kind of forgot to give at the start of this episode is that like normally on 1023 podcasts, like we do deal with some serious subject matter. Sometimes it gets a little dark, but we're always typically pretty good humored about it. we like to laugh a lot, we like to joke a lot and everything, and there is going to be some of that in this episode. But just due to the subject matter here, we are going to end up talking about some cases that Detective Flores here has worked and been a part of that there really is no room for joking in some of these cases. So there is like some kind of darker, more serious content that's going to give this episode a different tone than a lot of our other episodes. So bear with us. This one might get a little sad, a little
Yeah.
Debbie Downer, but we are going to come back with a part 3 that's going to kind of finish off episode 10-7 as a whole on a lighter note than god awful horrific death.
Yeah,
So,
probably this one's not going to be the most like gut busting. That was fantastic because there's really it's only so much you can do when it's
Well,
like
when your
yeah.
theme is 10-7 dead
Yeah.
bodies,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah. I
hard
mean, this
not
was
to
bound
get
to
kind of
happen. So,
Yeah.
onto a serious note. Yeah.
yeah. So I
Okay.
guess we misleaded everyone by making the first episode really funny.
Yeah.
But
We had a lot of fun with the first one, and
Yeah,
we'll
the
have a
first
lot
one's
of fun
great.
with this one too.
Yeah,
But
yeah. All
okay, so segue again.
Yep.
On that note, like a less joke. Well, not this may not be just be a less jokey, but this might be like a no jokey topic.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to get into real quick, and I know we have some notes and everything on some
Yeah.
different cases we could talk about. But on the note of like cases that you don't really joke about or anything,
Mhm.
you should tell us about. Well, I'll just put it this way: what is the youngest 10-7 that you have had to be a part of?
I had it was like a 16-month-old child
Mm-hmm.
die once a long time ago. That one was actually a really interesting case, and it actually ended up humbling me because I had arrested the mom years before for methamphetamine possession
Okay.
and dealt with her and her baby daddy. And they were selling, and they were meth head pieces of shits, whatever the hell. And so, anyways, when she had this kid, and got called to go deal with this incident, I was still just I think I was a supervisor on patrol. Can't remember. Anyways,
Okay.
it's been years, but I was still a patrol officer for sure.
You made corporal by then?
Maybe,
Okay.
maybe not. I can't remember.
Okay.
But I was definitely patrol.
Yeah.
And if not, at least a corporal. Then I was for sure FTO. Like by this time, I was already with an FTO for several years. Like,
Okay.
I was
Field
at
training
least doing-
officer and okay.
Yeah, sorry, field training officer.
Yeah. Would this be around the time? I can't remember. Would this be around the time that you were starting? You were still assigned to patrol, but you were starting to dabble in some of the CSI and
Yes,
like CID
yeah.
type
This was that
stuff?
time because that's the whole reason why they called me specifically out to that scene.
Right. Okay.
Was I started doing a lot more with property and evidence management and started doing the whole CSI fingerprint
Okay.
kind of.
So you weren't like a detective yet, but like
Right.
you were started to dabble in that world.
Yeah, I
of
started
the
making my
investigations.
way because that was my eventual goal. I had always wanted to specifically be a detective and to specifically deal with murders and deaths and things like that. Like
Sure,
I
yeah.
always loved those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But anyways, so that's the whole reason why they specifically called me to deal with this.
Mhm.
And so anyways, I got called to come out here and deal with the evidence portion of this case. But anyways, when this happened, because of course you're gonna do it, you show up to a scene and you're gonna look at stuff and you're gonna go, okay, based on what I'm seeing, what I know about these people or don't know about these people, I'm gonna cursory think this.
Yeah.
But you should never, of course, just be like, well, this is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
You should never look at like 2-3 pieces of evidence and be like, "This is what happened. End of story. I will hear nothing else."
Yeah.
Like,
And so when I showed up, I looked at everything and I was like, yeah, we'll see what the fuck happens with this. But I absolutely believe that this bitch is just negligent. And
now, I'm sorry for the kind of the setting for the audience here.
Yeah.
Where did this
okay,
like what? Where were you called to? Like
So-
what?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Area were you dispatched to?
Sorry, I'm in
you're
like
good, you're
can't
good.
talk about it.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
So I got called to an apartment complex that's it's a pretty shittier apartment complex here. It doesn't mean that everyone that lives there is shit,
of course,
but
not,
it's in
yeah.
the less cool area of town.
Sure. Yeah.
less,
Yeah. A cheaper kind of more
cheaper.
low income
Right.
area.
And so anyways, I got called here and I'd never been to that apartment before. None of us ever have. So that's a pretty good indicator too. If you don't have any prior dealings with someone,
Yeah.
then you're probably dealing with someone that's like they're fine. They're
Yeah.
whatever. But we got called to this particular apartment complex that we go to pretty often. And so anyways, show up and long story short, the mom is saying that the kid just died in the night. And the kid sleeps with her in the bed with her, like the
Okay.
big, like queen size, king size bed, whatever it was in their
Yeah.
room. So my initial thought was, okay, she rolled over on the baby in the middle of the night,
Mhm.
smothered it, and now it's dead.
Which happens from time to time.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not always going to be criminal.
Of course not. Yeah, a lot of
But-
times it's an accident.
Yeah, well, and what the backstory behind this is that she was like, well, that night, so like someone else was sleeping in the bed with me, but it was just a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was me, the baby was in between us, and then she was on the other side. And we had a party here, so there were several adults here. We'd been drinking and stuff, but like none of us were drunk. Like nothing happened. There was no
Okay.
no narcotics. There was no domestic. Nothing like this had happened. Whatever. I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then like at the end, we were like, all right, it's time to go to sleep.
Mhm.
Like I checked on my baby again, and we're like, yeah, he's good. I'm gonna put him here. I'm gonna sleep here. She's gonna sleep over there.
Yeah.
We don't like roll or move in the middle of the night, so we're not gonna
Mhm.
do anything to him. Everything's Gucci.
Okay.
Well, we go to sleep, and when I wake up, I find that he's not breathing, not responsive, and
Mhm.
he's dead. So then I called the cops and
Yeah,
paramedics, and they show
911.
up, and he's dead.
Yeah.
So my two theories were that one, they rolled over, smothered him, and he's dead, which is
Mhm.
not necessarily their fault, but it is
Mhm.
kind of, anyways.
Yeah.
And then the other one is that they were being negligent,
Mm-hmm.
and she was too busy getting drunk and partying and stuff that the kid, because
Yeah.
he did have medical complications, or at least that's what she claimed at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that the kid had some sort of medical emergency or whatever the hell.
Yeah. Well, and for context too, kids that are born to mothers that
Yeah.
are addicted to methamphetamine
Yeah.
typically are not very healthy.
Yeah.
As you can imagine.
So we get done dealing with that. I collected like all the bed sheets and stuff too, because for that we want
Yeah.
DNA. I want to figure out if there's,
of course. Yeah.
of course, blood, semen, because you're going to do an autopsy for that kid, and you're going to
Yeah.
figure out if there's any sexual trauma or if there's any
course,
trauma
yeah.
to the body, things like that.
Yeah. They look at everything.
So I collected baby blankets, the sheets,
Mhm.
duvets, pillows, things like that, to figure out if he's been smothered, if there's going to
Yeah.
be saliva on it, blood, whatever the hell, throw
Right.
up.
Yep.
So did all that stuff, took all the pictures, collected, because she claims that he has a bunch of medical problems. So
Mhm.
I started confiscating all of the like medical stuff
Yeah,
for
sure.
him.
Yeah.
I took all of his medical supplies, all of the medical
Mhm.
paperwork for him, whatever,
Right.
and sent all that up. And then we went back to the police department, and I watched the interview. I was not a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, and in that interview, she seems really forthcoming, and she looked much different than the first time I dealt with her.
Really?
She was not very skinny.
Mhm.
And she wasn't like morbidly obese, but she's
Right. She doesn't look like bony, like
yeah, she doesn't look like a
starved
meth head.
looking-
Yeah,
yeah,
she's
okay.
filled out. She looks normal. She sounds fine. She didn't
Mhm.
have any, meth scar, like meth. You know what I'm talking about, the sores.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't have any sores. She didn't, she didn't smell like weed or alcohol or anything. Like she was
Mm-hmm.
fine. And so in the interview, is where I started kind of questioning things, because I was like, well, she sounds really put together.
Mhm.
Everything that she's saying is completely plausible. It's very
Yeah.
well put together.
It's kind of
Yeah,
backed up by stuff on scene.
yeah, exactly. And basically, she's like, well, I was on meth. Like y'all have dealt with me in the past,
Mhm.
and whenever y'all got me that last time,
Mm-hmm.
not too long after that, maybe like 2 weeks or so later,
Yeah.
I was feeling really bad, so I went to the hospital or whatever. And long story short, I figured out that I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by that time, I was already 2 or 3 months into my pregnancy,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, shit, I'm gonna stop doing meth and I'm gonna get sober.
Mm-hmm.
And she did, to her credit.
Okay.
Well, you're exactly right. By that time, all the things that she had done
Yeah.
during her pregnancy had caught up with her.
3 months of meth for
Yeah.
a
And her baby,
unborn child.
yes, came
Yeah.
out severely deformed and had a
Mhm.
lot of complications and things like
Yeah.
that. So she was like, well, I felt bad. Like I wasn't gonna terminate him. I wasn't gonna do anything with him. Like that was my reason, my fault. The reason he's so fucked up. Like
Yeah.
he would have been normal had I not done all the stuff.
Yeah.
She's like, so I just kind of was like, I guess I'll take care of him and I'll do the best that I can do. And so in that interview, she's like, well, he's got this problem and this problem and this problem,
Okay. Yeah.
and I have to take him to the hospital 2 or 3 times a day
Mm-hmm.
because he can't eat on his own. He's non-auditory. He can't.
Yeah.
He has to have a feeding tube, like all this other crap.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, I gotta take him there for this appointment, then I leave, and then I gotta come back here for this appointment, and then I leave, and then I gotta come back here for this appointment to do this thing. So she has a very
Yeah.
put together thing of what she has to do
Okay.
just to keep this kid alive.
Sure.
And so we do all that, and I was like, well, this sounds
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
And eventually we start looking through medical paperwork and confirming that, and yeah, she did. She goes to the appointments. She doesn't show up
Okay.
drunk. She doesn't show up looking,
Yeah.
questionable. She doesn't show up with questionable people. So it's
Mhm.
all starting to add up to where it's like, okay, she probably is telling the truth,
Sure.
perhaps.
Yeah.
So long story short, they're like, hey, Flores, you want to go to the autopsy? And I was like, yeah, sure. So this
Mhm.
is also my first autopsy.
Okay. Yeah.
So I go down to the pathologist's office and I am there for the autopsy of this child. And the pathologist starts cutting him open and explaining things to me like, hey, this is in line with what she's saying. Basically, he was talking about the spine. He's like, hey, this is really deformed. This child will never be able to walk no matter how much therapy you get him just because of the way that the spine is aligned and all this kind of stuff. And this is
Yeah.
in line with what she's talking about.
Skeleton's super messed up.
Yeah, and he's like,
Yeah.
he has this problem, which is in line with this and with this. And so when they're cutting him open, I'm looking through stuff, I'm noticing there's no bruisings, there's no scars, there's no anything to his body.
Yeah. Look at your marks.
Yeah, he looks clean because they hadn't cleaned him yet. They clean the body when they're there.
Mm-hmm.
He looks clean. He's not like, marinating in his own piss or shit or whatever the hell. His diaper was clean.
Yeah.
His clothes were clean. His hair was fine and trimmed and clean and stuff like that.
Mhm.
His fingernails were fine. He has no questionable shit around his genitalia to show like any mutilation or anything like that.
Yeah.
No like STDs or anything. So I was like, okay,
Mhm.
all right. Just checking out.
Yeah.
This kid looks fine physically. I mean, other than what is wrong with him physically.
Sure. Yeah. Other than like
The
it
medical
sounds like
stuff.
the deformities and damage he suffered like as a result of being introduced to meth in the womb.
Right,
It
exactly.
seems that he's like well taken care
Yeah,
of.
he is well taken.
There's
Yeah.
no abuse or neglect.
No, and he was healthy. He wasn't super skinny.
Yeah.
He wasn't like underweight or super overweight. Like he was
Okay.
perfectly
He's
fine.
a healthy weight.
Yeah, like he was good. He was good.
Mhm.
They cut him open. Same thing. They're like, hey, there's nothing wrong with his brain. There
Yeah.
are no like trauma to show that he's been shaken.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
There is no like anything wrong with his lungs or his nose or whatever the hell. He hasn't been suffocated. Like whatever. So they cut him open. They show me all the things. They point out like, hey, if this had happened, his nose would look like this. If this had happened, his brain would look like this. So they show me everything, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, we get done with that, and I leave the autopsy, and I was like, damn, I'm that judgmental bitch that was like, this lady is absolutely 100% guilty. We're gonna file charges on her, arrest her, and send her away for whatever because she killed this kid.
Yeah.
No, she didn't. The child died from medical complications that were bound to happen someday from what the
was
shit
just-
stick
Yeah.
in life that
He
he
died
got.
of natural causes.
Yeah,
for all
he died
intents
of
and
that.
purposes.
Yeah, he did.
Interesting.
She did everything in her power she could have as a mother to make sure that he was alive
Mhm.
and wasn't like as unhappy as he could be. But in my opinion, I think it's best that he died.
Yeah.
It sounds bad, but like his quality of life was not going to be good at all. He would never be able to walk, couldn't talk. She would have to spend her whole life,
Yeah.
feeding him through a tube. He could never hold a job, have a conversation, go to school, do anything. It sounds bad, but this kid got dealt a shit stick in life. However, I'll give that mom credit. Like she did everything she
tried.
could. Yeah, she tried.
Yeah.
So it sounds bad, and I feel bad for her. I hope she's still doing okay. But that one showed me that, like, hey, just because you dealt with this person years ago and you were like, yeah, you're a fucking piece of shit, people can, in fact, change
Mhm.
and then go on in life and you're, like, not a piece of shit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that
Well-
was my first. That was my youngest
Mhm.
and my first autopsy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true too, huh? 1st
Mhm.
autopsy. So
Yep.
yeah, and so a couple things on that too. So yeah, I agree with you. Like to mom's credit, like getting off of meth is no joke. I mean,
Yep.
not that I would know from firsthand experience, but we work with these folks a lot.
Yep.
And it rarely happens. Like I would
Mhm.
go so far as to say it almost never happens.
Yeah,
is
that's
the way it seems.
That's why in law enforcement we have a tendency to be like, oh, you're on meth and we know this. We
Yeah.
find you with meth. You're with meth heads. You do meth
Mhm.
head things.
Yeah.
You are now a lifer,
Yeah.
and we will continue to deal with you until you are eventually dead someday.
Yeah, a lot. I would even go so far as to say most people that get on it never get off of it. They're a constant problem in and out of the criminal justice system. But for her to actually like recognize that, like, oh, hey, like I'm pregnant, like this isn't good, and to just, I'd hope that she just went cold turkey and
Yeah.
everything. But for her to stop at all and
Move on. with life.
really try and do the best she could. I mean, good on her for trying, and then so there's that, and then to your point of this unfortunate baby, I mean, it's one of those things where this is probably the best example that I could possibly come across to encourage people like not to dabble in drugs.
Yeah.
This is the ugly result of
Yeah.
a lot of it. But this kid was essentially doomed from the start. He was likely not going to have a full life anyway, and the short life that he was going to have was going to be constantly in and out of hospitals.
Yeah.
Not really able to enjoy a whole lot. So like, really, with these types of situations, these types of cases, our best hope, just as people, is that this person, this baby, was well taken care of.
Yeah.
They were loved. They felt some sort of sense of being loved,
Mhm.
and that they were treated with compassion and
Yeah.
everything, and that everything that was done for them to have a good life was done.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is just an example of irreversible
Damage.
caused by poor decisions.
Yeah, pretty
So,
much. So
yeah.
I mean, that was that. Wherever she's at, I hope that didn't destroy her again,
Mm-hmm.
and she went back to meth or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it would be really shitty for her to have started down that path and then got clean and worked her fucking ass off to do all these things, and then to have something, it sucks. Like, I know that was her fault, but she's dealing with the best that she can in that scenario, and she did do a bang up job.
Mhm.
And then boom, life slaps you across the face again, and now you're right back to like where all this started.
Golly,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, I hope
I don't
not.
know. I hope
Yeah.
the best for her. I mean, I would think that in the totality of the circumstances, that's probably the best thing you could do to honor that baby's life.
Yeah.
Would be to be clean the rest of your
Yeah,
life.
basically
and
never
make
have
something out of
the-
yourself.
Yeah,
And
never have the potential to repeat that.
yeah,
mistake.
exactly.
But
So
yeah, that was my first one, and that's a fine example too of like, yeah, we investigate deaths, and you don't always file
Yeah.
charges and stuff. That's exactly what
Yeah.
happened with this. We found
well, yeah.
no negligence, no
Mhm.
reason to file any sort of charges against the mom.
Not every death investigation is a criminal case.
Yeah,
It's not always and I mean, even the officer involved shooting that we were talking about.
yeah,
There was no crime committed there.
Yeah, that was
as far as
self-defense.
the homicide. Like, there is such a thing as homicide that's not a crime. So
Yeah.
there's
and
that.
Yeah, and that's what that was.
So okay, that kind of covers a few things. So we're hitting some highlights, obviously, and like we
Okay.
do this for a living.
Yeah.
This stuff happens very sporadically. This is what you and I. This is our profession. This is what we specialize in
Yep.
to a degree. We do other things too, but this is part of what we do is working death investigations. So we talked about, your first 10-7 call. We kind of briefly touched on that, and then we talked about your first officer involved shooting investigation, kind of being involved in that.
Yeah.
And then coincidentally here, we've got your youngest, hopefully ever, and your first autopsy got to go to and everything.
Mhm.
So these are like a lot of firsts for
Yep.
you and everything,
Yep.
which is cool to kind of to hear people's first experiences with a lot of these different issues in society we got to deal with. Now moving forward a little bit, so the next question I have for you now, I'm going to ask you this, but I don't want to like gloss over or jump over anything super cool and important.
Yeah.
So like, feel free to stop me and say, hey, okay, we'll talk about that. But like before that, this.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, whenever you became a detective,
Yeah.
and like now you are in criminal investigations division, that's your assignment, and you're doing this as a detective, not just someone on patrol who's helping with it, or someone who's starting to dabble more in the CSI aspect of it.
Yeah.
But like, you're the detective. Do you remember your first 10-7 as a detective, where you're the investigating law enforcement officer for this
well,
deceased?
I think the first one we ever had, because it was with your agency, the previous agency, or yeah, I'm sorry, our.
Remember, we're communists now. We
we're
share
communists now,
everything.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The previous agency that I was with, I never did get to be a detective.
Okay.
Ever.
All right.
Yeah. So I was just a supervisor on patrol, and that was it. I had some
Mhm.
other duties that kind of put me in that world and be involved in some things,
Sure.
but I was never officially an investigator or a detective, whatever you want to call them. I
Right,
was
right.
never assigned a criminal investigations division, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't until much later in my career. I actually left law enforcement briefly. I don't know if we had talked about that.
I don't think we did.
Yeah, it's fine.
Which
We'll-
we
I
can
know-
touch on that.
Yeah, I know we'll get to it later on
Okay.
down the line.
All right, all
I'm
right.
just kind of setting it up
Sure.
because I leave for a bit, law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And then I eventually came back in because I just was like, you know what? I just really need some more death in my life. And so I came back to law enforcement. And these fine fucks convinced me to apply for
Yeah.
the agency that we're currently at, that we work at together. And then I was there for 4 or 5 months, and then there just so happened to be an opening, and then they promoted me to detective. And so
Yeah. Well, you're qualified for it.
Oh, well,
so
thank you. I appreciate it.
There's that.
But basically, that one, there's probably not going to be a shit ton. I have a bunch, obviously, like his patrol.
Yeah.
But in the investigatory, everything hinges on us capacity.
Sure. Yeah.
Still don't have too many, like as much in that regard because this is still a relatively new position for me.
Sure. Yeah.
So-
and like I said, like before we get into like your first incident as a
Yes,
detective,
yeah.
I don't want to gloss over any
No,
of the
no, no,
other
you're
like notable cases from your patrol
No,
days.
well, I'm sure that like we'll flip flop
Okay.
back and forth.
Alright.
It's fine. I know we've kind of broken away from the linear structure that we had
Yeah.
had in the
We
first
kind of
episode.
time travel a lot.
Yeah,
so-
and that's fine. I understand. But basically, the first one we ever had, like, it's all on us, I believe, was going to be. I think it's actually you're gonna have to probably bleep this.
You're fine.
I believe it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll bleep that. We're gonna change names.
My first one as a detective, this solely being my shtick, and it's all on
Yeah.
us.
Sure.
I think was Bob.
Okay.
And Bob was your standard, hey, get called to this house. You
Mhm.
have, like, we've had a lot of prior, this actually one was a little unique. We had a lot of prior dealings with this guy
Yeah.
because this guy had a really awful, like, motorcycle accident a long time ago that he should
Yeah.
be dead from.
Bob should have died on the motorcycle accident,
Mhm.
but he not only survived, but like it's not like he was a vegetable after that. Like he was still a
Yeah.
functioning human, but he
Yeah.
had some psychological issues
Yeah.
that we get
He-
called to deal with him for a lot.
He, like, made a full recovery physically
Yeah.
and then got super into fitness and wellness.
Yeah, he's like competing in like triathlons
triathlons and stuff. And like he used to be a problem back in the day. We used to have to deal with him and his family and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, he cleaned up his shit and then should be dead, but he's not. So then he started, getting real into fitness and all this other kind of stuff. But one thing that always followed Bob in life, and he was young. How old was he? He was like
29.
29 when he died.
Oh,
Yeah, so
wow,
he's younger than me.
Yeah.
Or no, he's a little bit older than me.
Mm,
Anyways, doesn't matter, but he was
Yeah.
young.
he's
So-
he's about our age, a little
Yeah,
younger.
but basically the thing that always kind of plagued Bob was that he was really prone to seizures.
Was
Yeah.
it because of the accident?
Yes.
Yeah.
He had traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That
yeah.
like he shouldn't be alive. He
Okay.
got splat like real good.
Yeah.
But so anyways, Bob was real prone to seizures, but we'd also have to deal with him for mental stuff because he's a little out there, but he's had a freaking TBI.
Mm-hmm.
He had mental problems
So-
beforehand.
Fun fact in this investigation, one of the things we uncovered about his medical history was that after this bad motorcycle accident, he was so critically injured that he was on life support, and he had been on life support for a while, and he showed no signs of improving.
Yeah.
So the family had sat down with the doctor and actually made the hard decision to go ahead and take him off life support, basically to just allow him to die. And they took him off life support, and he miraculously pulled through on his own.
Yeah.
And he,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's real interesting, and it's actually also kind of sad because again he
Yeah.
survives all that.
Yeah.
And then finally it's just one random day that his body is like, nope, we die now.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So like this one, a prime example of nothing suspicious happened.
No.
There, whatever.
So talk about how this came out.
Yeah,
Like,
so it's your standard. Hey, you're gonna go to this house out in the county,
mhm.
because this dude he's not responding, not breathing. I think he might be dead.
Yeah. So Bob hadn't been heard from for a few days, and he had a very close friend that he would communicate with every day. And friend hadn't heard from him in a few days, so went over to his house to check on him. And this was a close enough friend that friend knew, where the key was or what the code was, whatever, to get in the house. Lets himself in and discovers Bob laying on the, face down on his bedroom floor, and freaks out and calls 911. And then
Here we are.
here we are.
Yeah. So we go to that. I think I got there before you.
You did, yeah.
So show up, and I get with patrol, and I'm like, hey, where's he at? Oh, he's back here. Great. They're already doing the very
Secure the
important job
scene.
of securing the scene, identifying everyone there, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I go in, I find the deceased. EMS is there, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, he's deceased. And I was like, yeah, okay, figured that out. Great, thank you. And I'm not like being an ass, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
what going through my head. Like I'm already kind of looking at
Yeah.
stuff. And so I was like, all right, great. He's absolutely dead. There's nothing, because that's another thing. If it's someone that could potentially pull through, kind of complicates things because then they're going to take that person, they're going to take them to a different area. Now you got to split
Yeah.
resources to be like, all right, if this is criminal, now we have to go find wherever he's at, try to interview him, like all this
Mhm.
other stuff. But so anyways, he's dead. Go inside and was like, okay, the house is set at a specific temperature, so that's going to help me figure out basically like a
Time
timeline.
of death.
Yeah, because if it's like with old people, like what we talked about earlier, they frequently set their thermostats real high because they're cold all the
They
time.
get cold easy.
Well, when they die, that turns into like an oven in their
Yeah,
house,
they
and then
bake.
they decomp faster.
If they die under an electric blanket,
Oh my god.
ugh.
Oh yeah. So, anyways, I was looking at the thermostat and I was like, okay, all right. And I go look at the body and I was like, oh, okay, all right. My cursory opinion kind of tells me this and that. There's not really signs of struggle. There's not blood everywhere. There's not, didn't look
No
like a
defensive
break-in.
wounds.
Yeah, no defensive wounds. I'm just kind of looking at stuff, and it's a little difficult to see everything on him because he is laying face down. He's like curled up in a way that you can't see his arms or anything.
Keep talking, but I want to
Yeah.
talk about your special ability
Yeah,
that we
thank you.
discovered.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there and we're looking at him, and I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. So this seems like, because at this point he's real young. Like, I know we've dealt with him a lot. I had
Mhm.
just dealt with him a week or two before he died, because he got called in again for being on the side of the highway. People thought that he was, suspicious, maybe suicidal, whatever. Well, no, his other family had died in a horrific car accident. There was like 5 of them. So he always runs every day to the site of their
Of the
crosses.
crash,
Yeah, the side of the crash where they have that memorial.
Mm-hmm.
And he runs there every day and just like reflects and then just runs back home.
Holy
Yeah.
guacamole!
So, yeah.
this
This
guy
family-
is kinda
Oh yeah, his family's
tragic.
had a bunch of
Yeah.
shit happen
They've
to
had
him.
a very tragic story.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I had dealt with him a week before or so because someone called him in. So I showed up and I was like, "Hey Bob, how are you?" "Oh, I'm good, thank you." Like, "Are you just running out here because we know him, but
Yeah,
we
he's
still
working
have
out, yeah.
yeah, but we still have to go talk to him and stuff."
Mhm.
"Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm just here visiting my family or whatever." And I was like, "All right, man. Well, like, sorry about you, whatever. Like, do you want some water? Because it was hot that day.
Yeah.
You want some water?" "No, man, I'm good. I got a bottle of water. Thanks, though." I was like, "All right, cool. Well, take care, man." Like, I didn't even bother to tell him, "Don't run in the road," or what. Like, he's
Mhm.
fine. He was
Yeah.
off the road. He was like, he was
Yeah.
back in there.
Yeah.
So I was like, "All right, well, take care, man. Stay safe and all that. Don't get splat." He's like, "All right, cool." And then I fucked off. Well, then, the next week or whatever is when I'm dealing with him and he's dead. So I knew from prior experiences, like, well, he didn't seem off the last time I dealt with him. He didn't make any weird thing where he's like, "I want to kill myself." And he didn't seem whatever. He didn't have any injuries. There was no one else with him, whatever. So I'm already thinking about all this kind of crap. I was like, well, other than, and we knew that he had seizures, so I was like, maybe he just finally had one gnarly seizure that finally did it. Or perhaps something criminal happened here and we have to kind of look into that. But for right now,
Yeah.
we have a young dude that's dead seemingly for no reason, and this is kind of where we're at.
So for some context too, just kind of set the scene here. So he's laying face down on his bedroom floor right next to his bed and his bedside table, and the sheets of his bed are real messed up and in disarray as well. Like they're
Yeah.
like the side of the bed that like it appeared that he slept alone in this bed. So one side of the bed is partially made, sort of, kind of, but the side that he appears to have been on is in disarray, and sheets, are draping down the side of the bed next to his body. And like Flores is saying, we can't see him very well, but it appears possible, if not probable, that he may have had a seizure while laying in bed and fallen out of bed. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it's looking like.
Yeah, it looks like he grabbed, because when you have a seizure, you just kind of tense up.
Yeah.
Looks like he had tensed up, grabbed the sheets, and then either maybe he tried to reach for help or something, or he just rolled out of bed, fell, whatever, and he pulled the sheets with him, and the sheets wound up like he's clutching them, and they're
Clutching them.
underneath his person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, we can kind of all see that, and then it looks like he might have bumped his head on the nightstand because there's like a little bit of blood on the corner,
Yeah.
like where his face is at.
Yeah.
But it's real difficult to see because we can't see his face and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay.
So we're taking
maybe.
all our pictures and everything just of
Yeah.
how we found him.
Yeah, so by this time, Fifth and gets here. I tell him about everything I found. We start looking at stuff. We're going through things, whatever.
Yeah.
We got do a cursory look at the house, and we found some real suspicious shit in the back of the house that we were like, man, maybe this did it. Maybe he did do some narcotics. No, because we got that tested, of course, and no.
Yeah.
It just looked suspicious. It's a fine
So,
example too of like when
you
you're
know, since we know that wasn't criminal, I'm going to talk about what that was though.
Okay,
And how
alright.
suspicious it looked.
okay, yeah.
So
go ahead.
in this back part of of Bob's house, he has a hot tub inside. Pretty cool setup. Well, the cover of the hot tub is on, and then resting on top of the hot tub cover is a paper plate with a mysterious white powder on the plate and a $5 bill that's rolled up and has blood on the end of it. And we're like, oh,
Yep.
that must be cocaine.
Yeah.
But
Like
no,
he partied a little too hardy.
yeah.
This
Well, we
guy
got
did.
that tested, and it wasn't coke.
What
Yeah.
was it?
We have no idea.
What?
Yeah.
It just tested negative for coke, but we
Yeah,
don't know.
it's
It
not
must have been like
narcotics.
baking powder or something. But like,
Yeah.
Was
what
it?
on
Was
earth?
next to a bunch of pool chemicals. So
yeah, it was
'cause-
next to Go
No,
on.
I'm sorry.
No, go on.
Because we hashed this whole thing out. We're like, oh man, what if he partied a little too hardy? Because then
Like,
of
is
course
this a
we have
drug OD?
we have to think about it this way. Like if it's a drug OD, were there other people? Because there's a bunch of alcohol.
Yeah.
But like it wasn't like there was 12 solo cups. There was just one big bottle of whiskey that was almost completely gone.
yeah.
And so we're like, it's entirely possible that's his personal one, and he just uses it when he's here, and it just happens to be at that level. Maybe someone else was here. Perhaps they saw him over D, and now we have more of like a they failed to render aid. They failed to
Yeah. Who
report.
knows?
Yeah, so we're looking at everything from all the angles, and we're like, well, this
Mhm.
could be chemicals because it's next to some fucking chemicals.
It was next to like a bunch of powdery stuff that I guess you put in hot tubs to treat the water
Yeah,
or whatever.
but
What, a $5 bill?
yeah,
Was he,
exactly,
like, snorting it?
exactly,
that's what we thought. Yeah.
exactly. So
'Cause
we're
we've
like,
seen that before.
yes. So then we're like, but why would you roll up this dollar bill, and why would there also be a little bit of blood on it? Like, what the shit?
It looks
is
like it
going
was
on
up
here?
in someone's
Green.
dry nose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
trust me, we thought about these whole things, and we're like, oh my god, this might actually be something.
I saw it and I was like, I know what this is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
wasn't.
and it wasn't. Yeah, we got it tested, and it didn't come back as narcotics. So
Yeah. Well, and they didn't. The lab typically won't test things like there's certain specifications you can request and everything, but we literally just put in a request for like, is this an illegal narcotic? They tested it and they don't know what it was because we didn't ask them to figure out what it was, but the report came back and said it's not an illegal narcotic. It's not cocaine. It's not anything illegal in our database.
Yeah.
So
we had done
Okay.
that, and we're like, all right, well, that's weird.
yeah.
And so we doing our little investigation, and by this time, of course, patrol's coming in, telling us stuff that they know, that they don't know, but that other
Yeah.
people are showing up. So it's a process. It takes
Yeah.
us a little while to search the house, kind of
Mhm.
get the lay. We're looking for like any notes in case it's a suicide, or
Sure.
looking for any signs of a struggle or whatever
Mhm.
the hell. So we get done doing all this stuff,
Mhm.
and towards the end, we get closer towards the end of this investigation, and we're getting pretty close to the time when the judge is going to show up, and we can actually move the body, manipulate it, get it all set up to where we can send it off for autopsy and all that crap. And I tell Fithin, because I'm getting really close to his face now, because I'm trying to take a picture of the nightstand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I told Fithin, I was like, do you smell that? He's like, no, I don't smell anything, whatever. And so we're like, okay, you sure you don't smell that? He's like, yeah, I don't. So then, by this time, it's a running joke that I'm really good at sniffing out death.
Yeah. Flores is like a cadaver dog.
Yeah, basically.
And this proved it. So,
Yeah, so
get
I'm
this.
sitting here and I'm like, no, because we're talking about timelines based on what he looks like and all
Mhm.
that.
Well, because you were like he smells pretty dead.
Yeah,
and
I was like, he smells.
and I was like, can
dead.
you're telling me you can smell his decomp?
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I think he's been here a while. He didn't just die like 2 or 3 hours ago. He's been here a minute and he's starting to decompose. And he's like, no, he doesn't look goopy. He doesn't have
Yeah,
any.
like from like the way he was laying, like I couldn't see any signs of decomp, and I was like, maybe a little bit, like wherever his lividity is gonna be,
Yeah.
but like I can't smell anything.
I seeing like to kind of help. Well, it didn't help matters for me, but it made it more logical for him. He's only wearing like boxers, so we can
Yeah.
see most of his skin and stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like where you're gonna typically decomp first is the face, and then like the extremities, like the fingers and stuff. So his toes were fine, his fingers were fine, his back, his legs, like everything looked
Yeah.
fine. He wasn't goopy, he wasn't bloated.
Yeah, it's
But
not
I-
a soupy mess
Yeah, I
in there
keep
yet.
getting this whiff of rotting body. Is very faint, and so I was like, "You're seriously not fucking like smelling that." And so by this time, I'm getting paranoid because I have this thing now where sometimes I'll just smell a rotting corpse for no fucking reason. Yeah, but that's because I've been around a lot of death. So sometimes,
Golly.
sometimes the good old smell of death will just hit me, and I'm like, "Oh wow."
Just
Okay.
like when you're mid spaghetti eating.
Yeah,
just
mid
like,
spaghetti
oh,
eating.
dead.
I'm like, I did go to that investigation.
Oh, so good.
Yay! Like I remember that one. So, but anyways, I get this, and I was like, but I don't see anything. But he's got to be decomping somewhere. So then I was sitting here looking at his body, and I was like, if I had to guess, he's probably decomping in the face, and it's not going to be a whole lot, but it's just starting, which is why it's a more muted kind of thing. So I explained my whole theory to Fithin. And Fithin's like, well, we'll just find out when the judge gets here and we roll him over. So I'm like, okay, cool,
Mhm.
because he doesn't smell anything at all. No one else smelled anything at all.
Yeah, our local judge likes to, if possible, it's not always possible, but if possible, our judge likes to see the body in the way it was found, like in the condition it was found.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we'll just wait, and
Yeah.
we will, like, once this is all getting documented and photographed and everything,
Yeah.
and here in a minute we'll flip him.
Yeah. It wasn't like super time pressing.
No,
we were
no.
fine. And there was plenty of us there. We were okay. Judge shows up, and we're like, all right, fantastic. We're all here. And so we have the big reveal. We roll the body over. Sure as fucking shit. He's decomping right in the mouth and the nose.
Right
just,
where Flores said he was.
Just in that area. He's all purpley and black and goopy. And
yeah. And then, like, I'll tell you right now, like, future scenes after this that Flores and I have been on, she's like, oh, yeah, like, he's been dead 14 hours.
Yeah. So, but anyways, there was that one. And long story short, we do investigate that one, and we're like, yeah, okay, that checks out. I think he had only had alcohol in his system. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
Because so I went to that autopsy.
Yeah.
I think you were tied up on something else.
I had some other clusterfuck shit to deal with. I can't remember what the hell it was.
But I remember I went to that one, and yeah, of course, like they always do.
Mm-hmm.
They did a talk screen and everything.
Yeah.
Because I was even wondering if there was an angle of this where I was like, for whatever godforsaken reason, was he like snorting pool chemicals?
Yeah.
Like, I thought maybe that was a thing or something, but
Yeah.
they say like, no, like really the only thing in his system that, like, it's not even that it shouldn't be there, but the only thing notable in his system is alcohol.
Yeah.
So, and not even a lot, like not enough to even be like,
Like
oh,
a
he was
problem.
intoxicated when he died, but
Yeah.
like he probably had like a couple drinks before bed or something.
Yeah.
Could they determine if he had a seizure or not?
That's what they ultimately ruled, is just based on his medical history. And then when they did open up his head, they, sawed his skull cap off and took his brain out and everything. And I'm not going to speak to that too much because that's not my area of expertise. I'll leave that to the pathologists. But they did tell me that they were looking at it and they were like, well, we can't tell a whole lot off this, but we believe, based on what you're telling us and based on his medical history and just based on all the totality of the circumstances, they ruled his death as death due to complications due to seizure.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
So they couldn't tell, like, if his brain. I mean, I guess I'm not an expert.
For
For some reason,
know.
I want to say I always thought that they could tell
They
if
can
someone
tell,
had a seizure or the brain was just different or
that was an interesting thing with this. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
They did tell me as soon as they got his brain out, the pathologist was asking me some questions about like, hey, like, did this guy have like, was he like mentally a little slow? Like, was he, for lack of a better term, was he mentally retarded, or did he have any special needs like that? And I was like, no, like, he was a little off sometimes whenever, our deputies would get called to deal with him for various reasons and everything. But I wouldn't say that he had like severe learning disabilities or anything like that. He's like, okay. He's like, well, his brain is definitely messed up. Like, and they knew because, we had informed the pathologist's office. Like, that's part of the reason why detectives go to an autopsy and work alongside the pathologist, is because the pathologist is really there to analyze the body and everything about the body, and sometimes they're going to find things that look interesting to them, but they're going to kind of refer to the detective about like, hey, like,
Why does his brain look this way? Oh, because
like, I'm trying to figure out time of death here, but like, what was the temperature, like where he was found, and like what were the conditions? Was he wet when you found,
Okay,
all these things, and then vice versa. The detective was also asking the pathologist like, hey, like, what about this? Like, and what does that mean? And so you're
like
working.
What's in his system?
Yeah, you're standing there over the autopsy procedure, and you're working together. Like, you're talking to each other usually, and it's a really good process.
It's no different than when he and I are together and we're working a scene. Like, for all intents and purposes, the pathologist office, that body is their scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're looking at stuff there, and just like we would do, we're like throwing ideas back and forth. Not ideas. Well, sometimes ideas.
Yeah, well, there's some conjecture, but like, you have to back up in a
It's
professional setting.
Yeah.
You back up conjecture with evidence, as opposed to just a non-professional setting where you're like, well, it looks like this, so this is what happened.
It's just like the paper plate thing. We're like, Coke. Well, then later on, we're like, well, it's not Coke, so we got to rule out the whole narcotics
And
thing.
he didn't have system.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
didn't
I
have
didn't
anything
have
in
it,
his
so-
system.
Yeah, and that's the professional standard. Is like, we look at that and we're like, that's pretty obviously cocaine.
Yeah.
But like, we applied a professional standard to it of like, well, let's check and let's make sure.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
And it wasn't. So
So
that's why you do things the right, proper way.
Pathologist office is just like that. They're basically like, what about this thing? And you're like,
they're a great resource.
Yeah, they really are. And it's actually fascinating because you learn a lot by watching them
Mm-hmm.
and by like learning the kind of knowing the kind of questions that they're going to ask also helps you in investigations
Yeah.
because it's stuff that you like are more conscientious of, and you'll look out for it, and you'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, they're going to want to know this and this
Mhm.
and this.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, a good detail to look at in a lot of investigations, especially when people die in a residence,
Mhm.
is go look at the thermostat. See
Yeah,
what
and
the
patrol.
temperature is.
Yeah, patrol doesn't know that, and they don't think
Yeah,
about
and,
that
and
a
even
lot
if
of
they do,
times.
like they're doing a million other things
Exactly.
where they're sweeping the area to make sure
Yeah.
there's no suspects in there. They're wanting to make sure the scene is preserved, like all the doors, exits, whatever
Yeah.
are covered. Like,
Yep.
so yeah, there's just a lot to consider. But
So
but
they
yeah,
just
that was
determined that he probably
Had a seizure.
most
Yeah.
likely had a seizure.
that was
Yeah.
the
And just died.
pathologist. Yeah, that was their professional opinion, was that he had died due to complications from a seizure.
Yeah, I'm inclined to
So-
believe this dude because he one time helped us solve a murder by just being like, "This looks familiar. I've cut open a bunch of people, and this one thing looks like this other murder I saw a long time ago.
Yeah.
Or not a long
Wow.
time ago, but that I saw."
Yes.
And then, long story short, we did some things, made some phone calls, figured some stuff out, and yeah, it actually was. So
Yeah, I won't say his name on here right now because
Yeah,
I
I
don't
won't.
know if he'd be cool with it. But Dr. P, if you're listening to this, you're a rock star.
Yeah, you're
we love
fucking
working with
badass.
you. You're a huge asset for us. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fantastic.
he's really
Wow.
good though.
What a tragic story, though. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy,
Yeah.
he was a meth head.
No,
Well-
not a
Was he
meth
not?
head.
Not
He just,
meth.
he
Like
just-
I think he dabbled in some drugs a little bit, maybe, but
Yeah,
like
he was-
nothing super hardcore.
Did you deal with
like-
him before the accident?
well, that was before our time.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
so like this
okay.
went back years.
This was
like
a long time ago.
yeah, so like way back in the day, he was kind of a hellion kid, was my
Oh, I see.
understanding, because he's
Okay.
about our age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I think when he was a teenager, especially, like
Yeah,
they
like-
were like in this area that we work now, the law enforcement of the time was dealing with him a lot just for kind of
Just
petty
being the
crimes and
rebellious
stuff.
Yeah.
teen.
Just
Okay.
kinda-
Yeah, but like he got older and like he had those real bad. Well, and so here's another fun fact: he had actually had multiple really really bad vehicle accidents.
Yeah.
But the motorcycle one was the one that was like that one like damn near killed him. You know, he came about as close to death as you can come and still come back from it.
Wow. When did
Um,
his family die? And
They died about 2 or 3 years before him in that flaming fiery car accident of death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
what?
Yeah.
What?
Fisher, who is also a
Is-
contributing member of this podcast.
Yeah, Fisher was there for that one.
Yeah, he was on that horrible wreck, and he can speak to that.
Yeah, that
So-
one was not good.
So they died about 2 or 3 years before he died,
Yeah,
and he died. It's 2025 right now. How
he died in 20. No, he died in 23.
I'd have to go back and
2023.
look.
So
I think he died
so
in 3.
for
Yeah.
he died a couple years ago, I guess,
Mhm.
and so his family died. Did his family die before or after the accident, the motorcycle accident?
After. So like
After.
he had the motorcycle accident years and years and years ago.
Oh, I see. I
Mhm.
see. I
And
see.
he had lived like a pretty healthy normal life for
Yeah.
like I don't know how long, but several years until
Yeah.
he this case occurred. But and then the other crazy thing about this whole thing is just small world and small
Yeah.
town. Like he lived literally just a few miles down the road from where the rest of his family was killed in that accident.
Yeah.
So he lived like a few miles away, like literally directly down from where that accident was. That's
Yeah.
why he would run there. He would literally get out of his house and run down there every day.
So
come back.
rebellious kid gets in a motorcycle accident, almost dies,
Mhm.
miraculously recovers,
Yeah.
and lives well.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, he
then
just
his
minds his own
family
business.
dies.
Yeah.
And then he dies.
Yeah. Yeah, he dies a 2-3 years later from just we believe he had a seizure in
From
bed.
seizure.
His
Okay.
family being mom, dad, brothers.
Nah,
No,
well,
no,
was
his
family.
mom-
It was his mom and then
His cousins, I believe.
his cousins. So, yeah, the living people from that family are still around. So we won't get into that one too much
Sure,
because that one
okay.
was super tragic.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
your standard, hey, grandma traveling with 3-4 kids, got into an accident, all of them die.
Yeah.
So, but it was like his cousins. I don't remember if one was his daughter
That I don't remember.
because he does have a daughter. I don't know, but a lot of members of his family were killed in that car accident down the way.
Golly.
So
I don't know that one of the deceased in that car crash was his daughter, because I remember at his death investigation,
yeah,
there was a room of his house that
was for yeah, that's right.
yeah,
It was for a kid. And he had pictures of the daughter in his room.
Yeah,
and
which
he-
and I'm not saying that
Yeah.
like people deal with grief in different ways, but I don't think she was one of the ones in the car.
Yeah, you're probably right, but basically it's like, it was
Was
like
it-
his nieces or nephews or cousins.
Yeah,
or
these his
something.
brother's kids.
Yeah, his
I
brother's
think.
It was
kids.
pure
Because his brother,
accident,
his
like-
brother is still alive.
Yeah, his brother Yeah, it's still here, and
Yeah. But you get the
Just
point.
pure tragic accident,
Yeah.
car accident.
Yeah, there wasn't anything
Yeah.
malicious
So,
with that.
Just
actually,
golly.
you actually helped solve this problem. So that car
Was it
accident,
that one?
yeah,
Yeah,
it
it was
was
that one.
caused by a really dangerous set of road
That was-
conditions.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
And-
that was the one?
Yeah.
That was that one.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah. So you're actually part of this story. You just didn't know
Wow.
it.
Wow, I
I
didn't know
didn't-
about this.
Yeah. So, well, Ashley helped the sheriff's office make a very like educational video about this dangerous intersection in our
Yeah.
county.
and we're convinced.
And we sent it up the chain to the proper channels to get that area of the highway and the road changed to where
Yeah,
it would
to
be
what it
more
is now.
safe. Yeah. And Ashley did that video for
Oh,
us.
okay.
So,
All right. Well,
Wow,
congratulations.
that
Yes,
was
it was
the
that one.
accident.
That was
yeah,
one.
but that was the one. Yeah, that was
that was a
and there had-
I remember when that happened.
Yeah.
yeah,
That was
that
a
was
big
so
deal.
tragic.
yeah,
Yeah.
there had been multiple bad accidents at that intersection. But that one was like the worst of the worst, which
Yeah.
I'm just gonna like briefly say what happened.
Yeah.
But two cars hit head on.
Due to the horrible
Due to the bad design,
of this.
there's this intersection of a highway has a really weird curve that comes in kind of unexpectedly, and there's a yield sign to like the oncoming traffic. But if you're just cruising down the highway and you've been cruising down the highway at 65, 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour for a long time, and you aren't really paying attention, like in a split second, you can have another car coming up off that curve, like right into your face.
and
so
that's exactly what happened.
yeah, it was a head-on collision, and then several people in the vehicles were killed instantly, but there were other people, there was children in her vehicle that were not killed in the initial crash, but they were trapped inside and they burned to death.
Yeah.
That is
So-
so tragic.
Yeah, that one
Yeah.
was not a good one.
Yeah, very horrific. So, but anyway, that's why we like, enough is enough. Like, we don't have the power to do anything, but we went out of our way, and you helped us to eventually contact up the chain the people who do have the power to do something about it, and we did help get that changed. So,
Man.
yeah,
There you go. So now the
This
story
guy.
has come full circle. But yeah, that
Wow.
was
Yeah.
our first one. My first one to investigate as a detective.
mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny and it's kind of stupid because I'm gonna sit here and be like, they all blur together because they do.
A lot of them do. Yeah,
And I'm trying to think that, and I'm pretty sure that was the first one. I can't really remember. There's the one that almost died, but she didn't. There's that one
Uh.
like I had been a deputy for y'all for like a week or two.
Oh, okay. You know what? Okay. Hold on. Okay, so we're going to move past
Yeah.
the first 10-7 case that you investigated as an actual detective, which
Yeah.
was this guy Bob.
Yeah.
Moving on from that though, so it's just a good story. Do you mind telling the almost 10-7
Yeah,
that you
sure.
had?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll make this one quick. It's pretty
Okay, yeah,
simple,
yeah.
anyways. I had been in law enforcement for years, left, and then I was out for a little while, and then I came back. Well, when I came back to the agency, I had been working for a week, maybe two at the most.
Yeah.
But I'm minding my own business. I come back in from patrol, and I'm walking through the office doing things, and I'm like, I really have to go pee. So I'm going to go pee. Like, I was doing my good little deputy things. I was out there pulling over cars, like doing shit in fucking school zones and crap.
Yeah, y'all slow down now.
Yeah, y'all slow down now. Don't be passing them school buses. You hear? Like, whatever.
Yeah.
So I come back in. I'm like, I'm going to go pee. Well, I'm walking through the lobby to go pee, and this little old man comes up to me. He's like, excuse me, ma'am. Like, I don't know if it's really a problem, but I gotta talk to someone about this. I just feel like I need to. So I was like, okay, what's up, man? And long story short, he tells me, I see my neighbor all the time, but and it's like, I know it sounds stupid, but every morning we both go outside at the same time and we water our plants together and we have like, mundane, normal conversations, and we do the same thing at the end of the day. And I just haven't seen her since like 1 or 2 days ago, whatever it was.
Mhm.
And I hadn't seen her. That's really abnormal. And she's got some boyfriend that, like, I don't know anything about him. He could be a fine dude or whatever. He's like, and I'm not sure about this, but I think the other day I heard arguing coming from their trailer because they're out in the county, but they live in an area that it's actually like they live next to each other.
Yeah, it's
So-
like close together trailer park.
Yeah, basically. So he's like, I thought I heard arguing. I don't know. But when I looked up, because this was at night, when I looked up, he came out of the house and got into a car and drove away. He drove away like he was maybe mad or something, because he's like, spinning rocks, and like he just, I don't know if he's trying to get away from something, but like he just, I don't know. I didn't hear anything. I went to the house, I knocked on the door. I didn't see anything, couldn't hear nothing, and like I haven't seen him back there, but like I don't know where she's at. I don't know nothing. He's like, and it could be nothing, but I don't know. So I was like, okay, well, let me just go check on that for you. And he's like, yeah, I'd sure feel better if someone did. He's like, I just don't even know, but I wanted to say something. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll go check on her then. So long story short, he leaves. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go on out there. So I get on out there. And in the meantime, I had kind of texted my bosses because I kind of anticipated that was going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
So I texted.
Wait, did you get to pee?
No, I had to hold it.
Oh.
I had to hold it for hours. I was on that scene. And at one point in time, I even turned to Sergeant so-and-so.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I fucking have to go piss. Like, can I please leave? Because
Like
I was
right now.
I was about to fucking turn the crime scene into a toilet. Like, I was fucking needed a piss. But this seemed pretty urgent, and I didn't want to be like, because I had originally told him, I was like, okay, well, let me go do something real quick, and then I'll go do this. And he's like, okay, all right. He's like, do you know how long it's going to be? So he was trying to be polite.
He has a sense of urgency.
Yeah, and so then I was like, okay, I'll go now.
I'm leaving right now.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be like, just let me go fucking piss.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
so I was like, okay, I'll go now. Yeah. So anyways, I left and I went to the house. Well, I pull up to the house, and so far there's nothing going on. Can't see anything, can't hear anything, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, by this time, my bosses came with me because they're like, yeah, you're right, that does sound a little
Sounds
weird.
a little fishy.
Yeah, so show up, go up to the door, knock on the door. Well, the fucking suspect in this case opens the door, and he's got blood all over him, and there's blood like all over the wall behind him. And he's, because he's an idiot, he opens the door and he's like, and we're like, hey, do you want me to say the name or just
let's call her
Patty.
Sally. Patty.
Sally?
Whatever, I don't care.
Sally.
Sally.
All right.
He's like, so opens the door and he's like, hey man, where's Sally at? And he's like, I was just about to call an ambulance. Yeah, and that was his response. And so we're like, whoop, definitely something's going on here.
My cop senses are tingling.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, go ahead and step on out of here. We're going to call him Nigel.
Nigel.
It's like, go ahead and step on out of here, Nigel. And he's like, okay. So I go inside. As soon as I go inside and turn the corner, again, trail of blood. There's blood all over the floor, blood all over the walls. There's broken furniture with blood all over it. She's laying on the ground, like face down like this. She's not moving, not making any sounds. There's blood all over her. She's clearly been stabbed multiple times and probably beaten. And the most notable thing is that her ear is cut off. The top part of her ear is like stuck in her hair because it's like dried blood.
Yeah.
So she'd clearly been laying there for a long time too, which is in line with what the old man said, that he hadn't seen her in a while.
Yeah, in about a day.
Yeah, because like the blood is dried.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was real interesting too, because, not like most of the shit that I go to, it's pretty quick. So there's not oftentimes a whole lot of really like dried blood, but no, like you didn't really have to worry about messing up the scene or whatever because it was dry. So anyways, she's laying there and I was like, oh, wow. Clearly she didn't do that to herself and just magically fall and this, accidentally stab herself however many times and beat herself and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So put him in cuffs. Didn't arrest him, we just detained him. But put him in cuffs, put him in the car, and then I go back in and I'm taking crime scene photos and we're working on getting EMS there and all that kind of stuff. And as I'm taking photos, she goes, oh. And I was like, oh, she's alive.
She's alive.
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
so I was like, hey, EMS, how about you like hurry, man?
Like, step it up.
Yeah, step it up. So EMS gets there. She survives. She pulls through.
Wow.
Yeah.
But she got stabbed like 12 times. She got her skull caved in with a cast iron skillet. And
Ear cut off.
Ear cut off
By the guy? By the suspect?
by him.
Boyfriend.
Yeah, so real long story short, that we showed up and she would have died because he was trying to figure out what to do with her.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he was there. Because he fucking beat the shit out of her, left, was gone for a minute. Like, we don't know what he did with the pickup to this day. He never did tell us and he refused to. I'm sure he took it to a junkyard and had it scrapped or something.
Yeah.
But the pickup just up and vanished. Don't know where that's at to this fucking day. He came back in a different vehicle and then was there probably trying to clean up the crime scene or go dump her body or something.
Did he assume she was dead?
Yeah, he thought she was dead.
Yeah, I think he thought that was the case because we're not sure exactly how it went down, but we think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Flores. I was actually out at a training whenever this case occurred, so like I didn't get to be there for this one. I think Fisher ran lead on that, didn't he?
It was
Oh, okay, all right. Well, anyway, So correct me if I'm wrong, but we believe that she had been hit in the head with the skillet first, and it probably knocked her unconscious. And then he had stabbed her several times. Is that what we believe? Or
It's real. See, and I don't know, and like I wasn't a part of the interview because I was
Yeah.
just the deputy.
uh-huh.
But based on what I saw in the crime scene, maybe I think the skillet thing was probably one of the last things he did
Oh,
to
okay.
her.
So I had it backwards.
Yeah,
like-
because she very clearly gets beat with like the old school TV dinner trays.
oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
she falls on that. He beats her with because he like picks up things throughout the house and hits her with it. Like the
Okay.
cast iron skillet was just one of the most dangerous ones.
Okay.
Because what he used to stab her were those. It's the fucking knives that you would use for like clay and things like that. Like
like a putty knife.
like a little putty knife, like those,
Yeah.
but those sharp ones, like the little scalpels.
Okay. Yeah.
He had used multiple scalpels that were throughout the house
Huh.
and had stabbed her like 12 times in different places
How
of the body.
strange. Okay.
And then beat her with different objects, and then eventually the cast iron. I think the cast iron skillet.
That might have been like the coup de grace.
Yeah, that might have been the coup de grace, and he just like hit her, and that kind of knocked her ass out,
Yeah.
and she was unconscious.
Yeah.
So
When
then at
she
that
stops
point,
fighting, stops
yeah,
screaming.
yeah. So then at
Yeah.
that point, he's like, "Oh shit, well I'm out of here," and then fucks off. But yeah,
Mm,
he came
okay.
back
He
to.
came back to try to do something with the body.
Yeah, he was
Clean it
trying to
up.
figure out what the fuck to do next. And I'm sure he was shitting a brick because he's like, "Oh, I done fucked up now," because it's not his first run in with us.
Yeah, he's a frequent flyer.
Yeah, so I'm sure he's like, "Oh fuck, well we just so happened to show up at that moment," and he was like, "Well," and so we arrested him, and he confessed in a different manner later on. We won't.
Yeah, we won't discuss that.
we won't discuss that. But it's for all you fucking idiots out there. It's not like we fucking took him to an interview room, busted his kneecaps, and we're like,
Yeah, no.
"Confess."
It was no like 1940s
Yeah.
like slapjack interrogation. It was
Yeah, he's just stupid.
He confessed through other means.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just stupid. So, anyways, he confessed, and we took that case up to court. He got convicted, and he's in prison now. So,
So
he's gonna be there for a
her
while.
neighbor saved her life.
yeah, her
He
neighbor
did.
saved her life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, a
did.
concerned citizen was like, "Hey, like I see my neighbor every day. Like I heard this big argument over there, and boyfriend took off in a bad mood,
And then
I
I
didn't
haven't
see her
seen
the
her in a
next
couple.
day."
Yeah.
And so he called, and I think again, I was
Yeah.
wrong about the last thing I said, but
you're fine.
correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think that they ended up finding out, or they estimate that she had laid there for about 18 hours.
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, she'd been there for a minute. That's why all the blood was dry.
Yes, yeah, it all coagulated in her hair and stuff, and
Yeah, because she had continued to bleed for a bit,
yeah,
but eventually, our body did the correct thing, and that eventually it patched itself with the coagulated blood,
Yeah.
and then she stopped.
stop bleeding, and yeah,
But she had such a massive concussion that
yeah,
she just
she just
fucking
like couldn't really move.
yeah
or,
laid there for frets. It's a miracle she didn't have
Well,
like
I'm sure she's super dehydrated from
Oh,
all the
yeah.
blood loss. Like,
yeah. But it's a fucking miracle she didn't have like a damn seizure or
Yeah.
something and just die,
Yeah,
or a heart
seriously.
attack or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, and like
'cause she was much
props
older.
props to neighbor for
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, this doesn't look right. Someone needs to go look at that."
Mm-hmm.
And then props to well, y'all going and checking it out so quickly, because this may be like, I'm not trying to be corny here, but like
Yeah.
who knows if you would have like gone to take a piss first
Yeah.
before going to that,
Who would have had enough
who
time?
knows if she those few minutes could have been critical for
Right,
her.
yeah, she
you
could have
know?
been dead by then, or he could have been like, "Oh fuck, now I have to leave," and then
Yeah.
it turns into the whole like,
Yeah.
"Well, who is boyfriend and
Yeah.
where did he
You just have
go?"
to find him, and
Yeah,
there's
and
a
so
suspect.
yeah,
Yeah.
it could have been more.
That could have been a more drawn out investigation.
Yeah.
It could have been a homicide.
Well, and he could have
Yeah.
he could have discovered that she was still alive and done her in
Yeah.
in 30
That's possible
seconds.
too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it all kind of worked out, and then kudos to EMS for like getting there, and like this person's very critically injured,
Yeah.
but I'm sure they did a great job with
Oh yeah,
getting this
Yeah,
person
clearly, 'cause
fluids.
she
and,
pulled through.
Yeah, I mean she survived. So
yeah, no, that was a good job on
crazy.
everyone's part, but. That one, everyone used to make fun of me too because that happened my first fucking week that I got there.
Yeah.
It was very similar to one of
Well-
the last murders that I had when I left my previous agency.
yeah. So whenever you were a PD cop, you were kind of known as like just an absolute crapshoot magnet,
Yeah.
like all the time. And then
Yeah.
you got out for a while, and then we finally talked you into coming back in. This time as a deputy, and boom, Flores is back in. Like, oh yes, Flores is back. Like,
Crapshoot.
yeah, like we got a
Here's-
lady
yeah.
almost like
Here's an
she's
almost
super
murder.
stabbed. She's almost dead. She's got an ear stuck in her hair. Like
Yeah.
this is a Flores scene. Like
Yeah, so but that yeah, she clearly did not die. We got a conviction on that case. It's good. He's gone now. She's alive.
Yeah.
She's fine. But yeah, that one happened.
yeah, so that was an almost 10-7.
Yeah. I can't remember what our
That was,
segue.
I think that was a good example of everything that something horrible went wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then right after, everything went right.
Yeah, well, and
Everything
it started with
did well.
one person deciding to do the right
Yeah.
thing
And then
check on their
multiple
neighbor.
people after that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes it really only does take that one, like, hey,
yeah,
maybe I'm just crazy, but
Mhm.
like, what about this? And then everyone
Yeah.
goes,
Yeah.
And yeah, well,
Well,
there was a
I've
problem.
called
Oh, yeah.
I've called the cops on when I was living in apartments. I've
Yeah.
called the cops on neighbors who were
Yeah.
screaming at each other and just like, hey,
Yeah.
I just want you guys to know if they're screaming, it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, like-
and I
Yeah.
just want
There's-
someone. I don't want to be that person to sit here
Yeah,
and do
that
nothing.
doesn't call
yeah.
some
you
shit.
know,
Yeah.
and
It's
then-
probably gonna be fine, but like in case it's not, like someone should intervene. you
Yeah.
know, and there's
Yeah.
people trained to do that, and that's
The least I
our
can do is
patrol
call
cops, so-
someone to come intervene.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I can't remember why we were discussing that one.
Well, I just wanted it was briefly mentioned as like an almost 10-7, and I was like,
Oh,
well,
okay,
it doesn't really
yeah.
fit the theme
Yeah.
of this episode with it being a 10-7, but
But
it was
basically
so
there's a lot of-
close. Like it was.
It's nice to hear
Yeah.
that this is it's a very dark, sad little episode.
Yes,
So it's nice to
yeah,
hear
yeah.
a little
There's-
light.
Yeah,
a little light.
there's a little
Yeah,
bit
there's
of light.
one almost 10-7 that did pull through. So,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
There's that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is that.
but now back into morbidity. Let's talk
Okay,
about
yeah.
someone who didn't pull through.
Okay. Well, who are we on to next?
Well, okay. So here's what I propose.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and by
Okay.
quick break I mean like 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops,
Okay.
and let's kind of look at our notes and everything, and then we'll get into some other
Stuff.
10-7 stories, and
Okay.
we'll move on from there.
All right,
So-
that'll work.
All right, taking a break.
Oh, I can't do it. Sorry.
So we're back from the break. Flores's lips have just been moisturized. And we decided to come back from the break with something real big and exciting, something just grand scale, one of the most craziest, heinous, god-awful crimes that has ever been committed, that our very own Flores was directly involved in, that she can't really talk about. So
Yay, it's another one of those.
yeah, it's another one of those. This particular case was a big one. And Flores is going to talk to us a little bit about it. Like this won't even be the Cliff Notes version. This is going to be like the Black Ops release version, where
Yeah.
like this is a thing that happened and I was a part of it, and this, that, whatever. But Flores, I'm going to let you do the best you can to talk about it. Feel free to speak freely, and then of course this isn't live, so we will go back, and even if you
Yeah.
do say something that maybe the
I kind of want to
courts
take out
would
or
not
whatever.
be
Yeah.
super cool with, we can redact it and everything. But
Okay.
by all means, go ahead and tell us this story, the classified version, as best as you can.
Okay. Let me think about how I want to word this.
We're gonna have to change some names too.
Yeah, for sure. Basically, we'll call the suspect in this incident. Let's call him Edgar.
Edgar. All right, I like it.
Edgar.
Yeah,
We'll call him Edgar.
Edgar, the
And
suspect.
then the victim, just gonna call her Nadia.
Nadia. I like it.
Okay.
I like it.
Thank
Edgar
you.
and Nadia.
right.
Edgar and Nadia.
Edgar
okay.
and Nadia.
Yeah.
Tell us the story of Edgar and Nadia.
Okay, thank you. So this was much later in the first part of my career. It was
Okay.
actually towards the very end.
This is when you're still with City Police Department.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
when I was a supervisor for the city police department on night shift.
Okay. Still
So-
patrol division.
Yeah.
Okay.
Managing my own group of bitches
Mhm.
and patrolling, doing normal supervisory, normal cop shit.
Okay. And you are the officer in charge of this whole shift for this whole night, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had my rookies. They were both brand new cops that didn't know any better. So
Mhm.
I know we can't talk about all of the nitty gritty details to it,
Yeah.
but like for people that are actually cops, they would
Mhm.
find a lot of this interesting because it's gonna it
Oh,
deals with
yeah.
a lot of shit.
Oh yeah.
And then people that aren't even cops, yeah, this is fascinating just for the simple like morbid curiosity and to kind of figure out how actual police departments run and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But of course, we can't get into the nitty gritty.
No,
So-
and the reason being is that this investigation is. It's not that the investigation is still ongoing, but it has not concluded its final results in the court process and everything. And
Yeah.
there's certain elements of this that just, for legal reasons, we can't talk about it openly on a podcast at this time.
Yeah, hopefully within the next year or two.
Yeah,
That
at some
gets-
point it'll all be cleared.
Yeah, But
and perhaps we'll have you back at that
Mhm.
time. But
yeah,
we'll
to,
see.
to talk about the redacted version.
yeah, the unredacted episode.
But basically, this particular night, it was later on into like the winter, spring kind of season, coming up into summer. But anyways, I was a supervisor, was minding my own business. It was 0:43 hours on this day, and I was patrolling in an area of the city that I was like, meh, I'm gonna go here, make sure no one's trying to break into houses and things like that.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm patrolling. Eventually, I hit a main road because I get done doing my little grid pattern over here, and I was gonna make my way to some other residential area to go patrol over there.
Yeah.
When I hit this main road, it's real dark. There's not a whole lot of city lights and whatnot for you to see what the hell's going on. I'm the only light on this street. Well, my radar starts freaking the fuck out, my in-car one.
Yeah.
And so I look over at it because, of course, the inside of my car is dark. So it's easy for me to see that something's going on with the radar.
Yeah.
So I'm driving, and my in-car radar is like, woof, we're picking up something. It's traveling very fast. It's going 86 miles an hour, and it's climbing.
And what's the speed limit in this zone
30.
that you're in? 30.
Yeah, it's 30. So obviously that's astronomically higher than what anything should be traveling in that area.
Yeah.
So I read it, and I'm like, what the? Is this thing malfunctioning? So I look up briefly, I'm like, well, I don't fucking see anything, so what the hell? Well, I look back at it, and by now it's like at 98.
Oh, shit.
So I was like, well, shit, it's climbing, and it's climbing fast, and whatever the hell it's picking up. So by this time I look again, and I do finally see it, because it's obviously getting up on me real quick.
Yeah.
So I see it, and it is, well, when it's a vehicle. Yeah, it's a vehicle. So I see it. I was like, oh, okay, well, this vehicle absolutely is heading directly towards me because we're driving towards each other. And so it's going 98 miles per hour in a 30. I'm going like 25, 30 miles per hour, not very fast. So I see it, and I was like, oh, shit, okay. Absolutely going to try to pull that over and see what the hell, because that's another thing. Oh, go ahead. Well, it's traveling very fast, which that's absolutely deadly conduct, but it also had no lights on. There was no headlights. Yeah, there's no headlights. There's no tail lights. It's just driving around in the middle of the night in darkness, driving a very high rate of speed. I was like, well, all right, I'm going to go pull you over because fuck you.
Super dangerous.
Yeah. So this vehicle's hurtling towards me. I was like, okay, I'm going to go try to pull that over. So I get on the radio. I start doing my U-turn maneuver to get safely pulled behind it to initiate traffic stop, whatever. Well, as it passes me, it passes by me so quick that I can't really tell anything about who's driving it, how many occupants, like the details of the car precisely. Like, I just know what it basically is. And so I'm like, well, I probably have, at most, I suspect, DWI. It's just a drunk driver doing drunk driver things.
That's a fair thing to suspect.
And, as a result, they're doing deadly conduct things because they're whatever.
Reckless driving.
Right. But at this time, that's all I got. So I was like, well, can't let that one go. I'm going to go fucking investigate the shit out of that. Long story short, I initiate this traffic stop. And it turns into a very long pursuit. Well, not very long, but it turns into a lengthier pursuit that spans a couple.
A lot of ground.
Yeah, it covers a lot of ground. It goes into the next county over, involves multiple agencies, whatever. So I start that, and this turns into a pursuit. And basically, enough people joined that pursuit that I was like, hey, I have to go back to the city for reasons that I won't necessarily.
Well, there has to be. You talk about there needs to be a cop on duty in the city.
Yeah, I'll say this, and it's whatever, it happens. My boots got a little too excited, and all of them left the city to join this pursuit.
Everybody wants to chase the bad guy.
Yeah, and so then, because they are also boots and were retarded at this time, they had tunnel vision like hell because it was their first pursuit. So they were not actively listening to the radio, and I was like, hey, you have to terminate and go back to the city.
Go back to what you were doing.
Yeah,
we'll get with you
they
later.
also didn't change the radio channel to go to scan, so that way you could listen to. So they weren't hearing me, and then even if they did, because there was one time that I came through their channel, they were like, they just didn't acknowledge it. They were just they kept going. Yeah. So it's stuff that was addressed and dealt with later, but basically, from a supervisory standpoint, it's kind of a clusterfuck. My boots basically, at that time I was madder than fuck, so I was like, how dare you disobey a direct order, whatever.
Because your prerogative, your assignment is to patrol and protect the city that you work for.
Exactly.
And now you're out of that.
Yeah, there are no cops in the city at this time. None. at all. Not the
Zero.
county, not the city. Like
Yeah.
everyone was doing this thing.
Everybody's chasing the bad guy.
Yeah, and so I was like, "You idiots!" But it's fine. But
at the time, you're super agitated.
yeah, at the
It's
time
like,
I was super
"Oh,"
agitated,
like-
and then later on when I looked at it, I was like, "Oh, okay, I wasn't going through your channel because you didn't change the channel because
Mhm.
again,
mistakes were made.
mistakes were made. Whatever, it's been addressed, but." It was a training thing. They got tunnel vision. It was their first pursuit. Whatever.
It's a compound issue.
Yeah, so there's a lot of shit that happened with that. But basically, all of my units left the fucking city, and the city was undefended. So I was like, well,
Yeah, well,
I guess I'll go back to the city and I'll defend it.
gotta make the big supervisor decision
Yeah.
and say, I will not have the fun job and I'll go back. And,
Yeah, basically. So I was like, hey, you other person that's responding to this, you're now incident command of this pursuit, and I'm going to leave and go take care of the city. So then I did that, and I returned to the city. Well, not too long. Well, as soon as I got back to the city, as soon as I got back to the city, I got sent to a house that I recognized that I have had previous dealings with before. And basically the only information I got was that there was an unresponsive female there. So at this time, I hadn't really connected the dots, but I go. And really long story, redacted super op spy shit
Yeah.
version later.
We're going to have to fast forward through
I have
several
a lot-
hours of,
yeah. Yeah, long story short, this woman had absolutely been murdered. Her name was, what did I say, Nadia?
Nadia, yeah.
Yeah,
Nadia's
Nadia.
dead.
Yeah, Nadia had absolutely been murdered. Very horrifically so.
Yeah.
It took a very long time. If you can put together context clues,
Mhm.
it was not, Nadia did not have a good end to her
It's
life.
not a peaceful death.
No. And the person that had done this was the person that I was chasing, which was Edgar.
Mm-hmm.
And Edgar had actually fled the scene of the murder, which is when I intercepted him and I initiated that pursuit.
So he's so hell-bent on getting away from the murder scene that he's doing 90-something and a 30 with no lights on at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and then it was actually 0:43 hours is when I
Okay.
initiate that. So it's not even 1 in the morning when he does that.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. But so anyways, that's the nuts and bolts of that whole incident is what I figure out, of course, from having gotten there and investigated it. And this turned into a giant clusterfuck because again, this was a pursuit that spanned multiple agencies, other counties. It involved city police, county police, other county fucking
Yeah.
people. It involved the Texas Rangers. All kinds
Becomes
of
a big
shit.
deal.
Yeah, it became a very big deal. So this right here, aside from perhaps the New York murder,
Yeah.
and then the other one that we can't talk about with, you're probably gonna have to bleep this out, with the
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that in probably a future episode.
yeah, this one right here for me personally was the most high profile. I did the because this was whatever.
Well, this was a historical case for this entire region of Texas.
So
and it's because of how horrible the murder
was.
Yeah.
Like physically horrible.
It wasn't like
this woman.
Yeah, it wasn't a normal
No.
I'm not going to say anything more. But,
Yeah. But so anyways, long story short, I started that pursuit. I get to the scene. I'm the first one there. I identify the victim. I do all the stuff. And I determine like, hey, well, this is basically what happened. This is primary suspect. More investigation happens. We identify the suspect and then.
And can you tell us, was Edgar captured?
Edgar, yeah. So Edgar was captured, and I'm trying to think of how to word this one. Edgar, we'll just say this, and we'll let the audience. One of these days, it will be disclosed.
One day.
But for now, it's gonna sound real fucking weird. Edgar is dead.
Yeah. We're gonna leave it at that.
We're gonna leave it at that. Yeah, that
how
would be...
that took place. But
Edgar was captured.
Edgar
but
was captured.
He's no longer being prosecuted.
Yeah, so Edgar is dead. Skis.
And that's all I have.
That's all I have to say about that.
Wow, what a teaser!
Yeah,
what
I know
a
it sounds.
teaser.
I know it sounds super like, but yeah, one of these days when we can clear it all up,
we're going to have you back on for the unredacted episode at some point, and we will bring up all these things.
Yeah. So, but anyways, for that one, I initiated that whole thing that eventually captures the fucking suspect.
I'm sorry, the suspected person of
captures
interest
the
that may or
suspected
may not
person
have
of
been
interest.
involved in a. Yeah.
Exactly. So for that whole thing, I initiate the pursuit that captures the primary suspect for this incident. Who was also the only suspect for this incident.
Right.
And then I also was the first person on scene, aside from the person that found her
Mm-hmm.
and called it in. I was the first person on scene, so I've also found the victim. I found the crime scene. I found whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Secured it, called out other units, all that kind of stuff, and did the primary, like initial investigation until the Rangers got there, and then I worked with the Rangers to help.
Get it all.
Get it all
buttoned
done
up.
and get search warrants for the house and things like that. And then
Was that your first time writing a search warrant?
that was my first time.
Lucky you.
Yeah, it fucking sucked. That was very stressful.
It,
I was,
yeah.
Yeah, I was literally like, my God, I'm in charge of everything here tonight. Like I am. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Surprise.
yeah, that fucking sucked. And like the Rangers are standing over my shoulder watching me write the search warrant. I'm like, I can't let them know this is my first one. And I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Yeah, yeah. So that one fucking sucks. But basically, he's right. I happen to have it is probably the most horrific,
yeah.
murder in the history of this county.
Oh,
well, and even
yeah.
you didn't the
Probably in this area.
Didn't the Texas
Probably in
Ranger
this
say
region, yeah.
the Texas Ranger who is currently doing it?
Well,
He mentioned that it was probably one of the worst ones he's seen.
so yeah, and I don't want to like put words in his mouth, so I won't say this was a direct quote, but he said something along the lines to me. This is one of the lead rangers that was assisting on the investigation. He said something along the lines to me of, out of all of the homicide cases I've worked, this is probably the worst, like most like heinous one, like maybe probably the second most heinous one that I've ever seen in my career. And he's like a 20 plus years ranger. Yeah. And so it was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's that.
There's that. So yeah, definitely it's a pretty landmark case. And the interesting thing behind the scenes with that is that after that, the community was in a massive state of shock from that incident.
Yeah.
There was a lot of rumors floating around about what actually happened and the details behind it.
There's rumors to this day about that.
Yeah, there's rumors
completely
to this
incorrect.
Day. Yeah, well, it's because we've never released what happened
because we can't.
It's an active case and we can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, this lady was murdered. She was murdered by allegedly this person, and people may not know this, but these ones are a little hanky because you can't really close them out because we never got the chance to like talk to officially the suspect and try them. Like, so it's you have to do a bunch more shit on the back end to get them cleared through the court to be able to be like, hey,
they're guilty of
they're guilty of this. Like, I know we can't talk to them.
We can't hold them accountable for it.
Yeah, we can't hold them accountable for it. We can't convict them or whatever. But like, here's all the evidence that says that they did it, and like, you should just close this case. Like, it is done. No one else did this.
Yeah,
it's resolved.
Just air the truth out. But.
Yeah, so that's what we're waiting on with this incident. That's what makes it a little more clusterfucky, is that the suspect for this incident is also deceased.
Yeah. So.
But yeah.
That incident affected you so much that's kind of what led you to leave for a little while, yes?
It wasn't so much that. Like, it definitely helped speed up issues, but I was real fucking mad with my agency.
Right. And you were just kind of like, it was
the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah.
Burned out.
Yeah.
And then this happened.
Yeah, because I didn't I didn't like anything about how it was handled administratively. I didn't like anything about how, and again, there's things that we can't really talk about.
Sure.
They set us up for failure on a lot of things. And that was just one fucking piece of all of the 28 other fucking things that we were all fucking mad. Because this was the year that I decided to leave. This happened, and then a couple months later, 12 of us left this agency.
Yeah.
So, like, it wasn't just me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone did an about turn and fled this agency.
Sure.
Like, there was a lot of problems.
Because just the way they were dealing with everything.
But yes, for what you're saying, this was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And this was like, you know what? This shows me right here that they don't give a flying fuck about me. And they will do everything in their power to... How do I word this?
Fuck you over?
Yeah, to like fuck me over. They don't... Well, it's not fuck me over. Like, but they just don't care. They won't have your back.
No. And they'd rather like... Without getting up... I should say it. So I won't.
Yeah, it's fine. Basically... I do not like this agency.
Mm-hmm.
I used to really like it when I was a rookie cop, and then unfortunately we had the death of our chief of police, and he was replaced with leadership that we did not like, and that was drastically different than what we had. And then the relationship between patrol and administration and whatnot got drastically worse, and there were a lot of things that became new rules and policies and whatnot that kind of hampered law enforcement. Basically, what happened here or with this agency is basically what's kind of happening in California, where they're like, hey, you're cops in like every sense of the word except for doing actual cop stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so, but basically there was a lot of shit that happened. Like, and like kind of going back to what we had briefly talked about earlier is that one of the officers had actually got fired, and I got involved in that because they had secretly recorded me talking shit on our bosses.
Oh man, what
Yeah,
a mess.
well,
What
my
a
boss,
mess.
yeah, well, yeah, it was not
Turned
good.
into a big debacle.
Yeah, and well, my bosses already knew that I didn't like them, but of course, having a 45-minute video of me talking shit on you, they're not going to take that lightly.
Let me just complain about work for
Yeah.
an extended amount of time
Oh, yeah,
and
exactly.
not know that it's being recorded to use against me.
Yeah, exactly. So this officer stabbed me in the back on that, and so then they had a 45-minute video of me talking shit on them, and I was like, all right, well, you guys already hate me. I already fucking hate y'all. Clearly, y'all don't give a shit about nothing. Like, I'm like, why the fuck am I even in law enforcement? The whole of America is going towards anti-cop. You can't be a cop anymore. Everyone fucking hates cops. This isn't worth it financially. It's not worth it mentally. None of that shit.
Yeah.
I'm fucking out. I hate all of you. And that was the end of my career.
Or so we thought.
Or so we thought. Yeah, in October, I retired for what I thought was forever.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm hanging up the cape,
Yep.
the badge, all that.
Yep.
Well, do you remember?
Go ahead.
Do you remember? We made this comparison about you one time to, like, we used to talk about how whenever you left law enforcement, like presumably forever, we're like, oh well, you know, do you ever have like the badge in the closet or like calling out to you like the Green Goblin's mask? Like, Kylie,
yes, that Kylie, come back.
like, there's criminals afoot.
You want to kill more criminals accidentally. Like, yes, I do actually.
Like, Kylie, they're getting away with crimes.
Yes, exactly.
You have to stop them.
Yeah, pretty much. So
but then you did come back.
You do eventually come back to an agency that does treat its cops a little better.
It was the complete opposite. It was absolutely the complete opposite. So, well, hold on. So we got that one covered.
Yeah.
We can talk about my career progression in greater detail, I guess, for part 3.
Sure.
Yes, let's say
we'll
that for part 3.
We'll stick to 10-7.
Yeah. So excellent catch there. So, okay, that was kind of like this big heinous, like, high profile case that we can't really fully disclose right now. But yeah, this like serious thing happened, and you were front and center for like every exciting aspect of it.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I'm going to go on the record, too, and be like, fuck you guys. I should have got, like, a letter of commendation. Fuck all of you.
Yeah, that's totally, completely 100% warranted.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not even asking for, like, a medal or something. Just give me a little fucking letter. This is on this date. This time you did a good thing.
Well, you did do a good thing, because here's okay. I know we can't get into it too much, but Edgar was in, I think it'd be fair to say that he was in a not so normal state of mind on this particular date, and Lord knows what his intentions were to flee this scene and do whatever he was going to do. Yeah. Essentially, suffice to say, he had to be stopped. Yeah. And there would have been actions led to him being stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get further into whatever. But yes, thank you.
So there's that. Moving on to a case that we actually can talk a little bit more about, and as always, just out of respect for the victims and other people involved in all these cases, we're going to change some names if we need to, and maybe obscure some non-vital details. But another famous 10-7 case locally here that you were directly involved in.
Oh, son of a bitch. I just remembered. I think technically we had one before Bob.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you remember homie that fucking hung himself where I live? He was, y'all had that SWAT call out with him. Before.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, me too. Technically, that was the first one I ever had to investigate here in the county.
Yeah. Wow.
Find an example that too of the family just being like, nope, he was murdered. Like, he was very I'm sorry. What?
Real quick, like that does need to be said. So it's very, very common in the law enforcement world. Whenever you have a death investigation that is a suicide, very common for the family and friends of the deceased to not believe that it's a suicide, sometimes forever, sometimes eventually they people will come around, and once the emotions have kind of subsided, they'll look at the facts and be like, yeah, my loved one did take their own life. But it is not uncommon for cops to see um, family and close friends of a suicide victim believe forever that this is some kind of conspiracy. They were murdered, that XYZ happened, but they didn't kill themselves. And and that's not to say that, oh, every time we suspect suicide, it is suicide, because that's not true. But I have yet to come across just a cut and dry suicide where the loved ones of the deceased were totally on board with that finding, and we're like, oh yeah, that is what it was. That's man, we always knew like that was gonna, like, very common for them to deny that and be like, no, like, for XYZ reason, someone had him killed, whatever. And
come up
a lot
with
of times
whatever.
it doesn't pan out.
But sorry, I know we're moving on to other things, but I forgot. I was just thinking about all of the death, and I was like, shit, technically we're wrong. That was the first one
was the first one
dealt with.
So that one in a nutshell, just to cover it, because
real quick,
because it's brought up now. We went to a house in a smaller town in our county that we work in, and the call was essentially a kid got home from school and was looking for dad, who was always home whenever he got home from school, and found dad, who had hung himself with a extension cord over the door of his daughter's bedroom. Daughter's bedroom was built in what used to be like a garage area that had been converted into a bedroom. So there was like a tiny little set of stair steps that went down into the bedroom. And so he was able to throw like those really long, like, outdoor orange extension cords. Yeah, he got one of those, tied it around his neck, threw it over the door, shut it, and then leaned off those stair steps into it to choke himself out, and he died that way. And that was, I think, the first death investigation that when you were with the sheriff's office.
Yep, he was still hanging, and we had to pull him down and do all the stuff that we previously mentioned for all the other deaths that we do.
Yep, same type of thing.
But he hung himself, and he's dead now. That was the first one.
Find out why he hung himself?
Yeah, he had a lot of problems in life. Like, we had a SWAT call out on him before, and I'm not going to tell that story right now. In fact, one of these days, when Fisher is in the studio with us, we should have Fisher help break that down, because that was a very interesting call out. But he had a lot of issues that I won't get into right now, but it wasn't really this huge shock whenever we found him that he had taken his own life like that, because he was just a very, very troubled individual.
He's well known to law enforcement.
Well known to law enforcement, well known in the community to have a lot of problems. And
how terrible for the son.
Yeah, extremely sad. But that was, in fact, that came before Bob. So
forgot. Anyways, what were you gonna say before that?
Anyways, I would like you to talk about a very horrific vehicle accident that occurred when you were a city cop.
Sorry.
I can see, like, as you're saying the yas, like you have like the 1,000-yard stare and
the helicopters flying
the Vietnam
around.
Helicopters.
Yeah, that's me. I perpetually exist in that state.
Yeah. I think most of us do.
All of the things.
Yeah. Someone says that, like, trigger word, and then it like brings everything. Like, oh god.
There's so much. Everything everywhere.
Everyone is dead.
Everyone's dead. There's a turd in a cup. There's fucking.
If we can ever get that one guy on, we're telling that story.
We're telling that story. That's a great one. Yeah, like, there's all kinds of shit going on here. But anyways, what you're talking about, I was absolutely not a supervisor at this time.
No.
This is earlier on in my career.
Yeah.
This area that I was a city cop in, this is back before I left. It's also back before I was disgruntled. This was back whenever we had the previous agency that we were.
Yeah, well, we both used to work for this city police department at this time.
So everything's normal here. It's just by this time I was a little bit more of a seasoned officer. I was still an FTO, but I'm just not a supervisor yet. I'm assigned to my shift, whatever the hell, and I'm doing my own thing, whatever. Well, on this particular day, this is how it always happens too. You can appreciate this. This particular night was night shift, and I was chilling at the spot that we always chill at. And one of my friends had brought me dinner. And I was literally walking up to her car to go get this dinner and like sit there and eat dinner on the hood of her car and talk. When suddenly dispatch is like, I need units en route to this. Like her voice is cracking and stuff because it's a clusterfuck. Like on their
High
end,
adrenaline.
yeah, on their end, they get bombarded with calls and people are screaming and there's just whole.
So they're getting numerous 911
oh
calls.
yeah, it was immediate because it was such a big thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, dispatch is freaking out and they say like, hey, I need units en route to this location, vehicle versus building, and there's multiple people injured, multiple people involved, whatever. So of course I was like, oh shit. But to kind of preface this, in this particular area that we work in, fatals are common out in the county. They are not common within the city. It
Correct.
is very rare for city officers to deal with fatalities.
Yeah, fatal vehicle accidents.
Yeah, I had the first one in years. Yeah. And the one before that one was a negligent homicide. And before that, it hadn't happened in a very long time. So they did not occur. So it came as a shock. No one sees it coming. So anyways, I get sent to this location. I'm like, well, all right, lights and sirens. And I get out there. I'm the first unit there because I'm just so great at driving fast, Ashley, also, by the way. So
the ace.
Yeah, the ace. So I show up. And the way that this building was set up, it was like a large event center right next to a very popular, always packed gas station.
Truck stop, yeah.
Yeah, truck stop. And when I show up, it looks like an active shooter situation. There's like 50 people just fucking running everywhere all around the scene. And I pull up next to this building, and sure as shit, there's a line of cars that were parked outside this event center, and there's a semi parked like in the wall and on top of cars and trailers and all this kind of shit. And when I pull up, of course I have lights, and I turn my sirens off, but I leave my lights on. And as I'm pulling up, the horde of people turn and see me, and then they, like 20 of them break off from the main group and all rush my car. So I was like, oh fuck, this is dangerous as shit. Like I have no idea what the hell's going on.
We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, don't fucking like this, but it is what it is. Here I go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one there, of course. So I
get surrounded by panicked people.
Yeah, so I get out, and this horde of people, there's like 20 of them, are all screaming at me. I can't tell what any of them are saying because they're all just screaming whatever they're screaming. And in the background, there's people sprinting every which direction, and there's more screaming, and there's like sirens in the distance, and there's people yelling and crying and all kinds of shit. Oh yeah, it was a cluster. So I'm sitting here looking at all these people surrounding me, trying to figure out what in the fuck is going on. Well, finally the crowd of people breaks, and some dude exits the crowd, and he's holding a little girl in his arms. Yeah. He's holding this little girl, and he like stretches his arms out and tries to give me the little girl, and she's very clearly crying because on her legs, she had like degloved or cut off her foot or something. Like she had part of her foot that was dangling by like a little sliver of skin from where she like got injured clearly. So I was like, what? And that shocked me because I wasn't expecting to see the little child, and I wasn't also expecting them to try to give me the child. But like, it makes sense. They don't know what to do, and they're like, hey, you're here to help. You have this fucking child that's hurt.
You're a professional.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, well, I'll just tourniquet this. That way she doesn't bleed out from this fucking massive thing that she's got on her leg, foot thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I get my tourniquet out, I put it on her, and I start speaking. Well, they're all speaking Spanish, and by this time I didn't my Spanish skills were severely limited.
Sure.
So I was like, does anyone here speak English? Some guy was like, yeah, I do. It's like, great, you translate for me. So I grab him, he's translating, and I tell them, hey, I'm going to put this on. It's going to hurt. She's going to want to take it off. Do not take this off. If you take this off, she might die. Like, leave it on. Don't fucking touch it. Don't do anything. And they're like, okay.
Tourniquet's hurt, but they will save you.
Yeah, so he's explaining all that shit. He's like, okay, whatever. Because I knew at this point, like, I couldn't take the girl. There was whatever the fuck is going on over there. I could do what I could do for her here, but I had to go over there to figure out the fuck else is going on.
Yeah.
So I put the tourniquet on her, and I tell them, like, hey, you can just wait here for EMS or take her to the hospital, do whatever, but don't fucking take that off. I have to go. And of course they're like, where are you going? Why are you leaving? Whatever. And I'm like, can't fucking be here. Goodbye. So I fucking run through the crowd. And as I'm running, there's again, fucking people shouting and screaming. There's even some fuckhead. I remember him clearly because I remember being very mad. I wanted to like take my gun out and shoot him. There was some fucking idiot standing near all the cars with his fucking phone out, and he had Snapchat open, and he was filming everything. He's like, "Whoa, bro, this is super fucking crazy." I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
yeah, I was
You're like-
fucking pissed as shit, but like
People
I
are
couldn't.
like dying around him, and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
recording the
Yeah.
whole
But
thing.
that's how human nature is. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? They're
There's
fucking.
I
always-
hate social media.
Oh yeah, they're fucking stupid.
There's always those people. In
But I
those
remember seeing this fuck, and I couldn't do anything about it. Like, if there was 12 of us there, and I could have had the opportunity to at least take his phone and fucking smash it, I would have fucking done it. But, anyways, I couldn't. I was like, I have other shit to do. So I come around the corner, and as I come around the corner, there's all these bodies on the ground, and so I was like, oh yeah, I gotta go deal with that. I can't deal with this fucking idiot with Snapchat.
Yeah. Higher priority things.
Yeah, exactly. So I come around the corner. Of course, people are still fucking screaming and yelling, and there's some lady that's like, and this comes up later on. Again, this is the chaos of things that are happening in the moment. She might have believed what she was telling me, but it was not the case, because then I waste a lot of time looking for bodies under vehicles because she tells me that there's people trapped under the vehicles.
So at this point, can you tell us what had happened?
Yeah. So long story short,
So, yeah, like
yeah, I'll tell you what
there's
happened.
a semi
Yeah, there's
in
a
the
semi like
building.
halfway
Yeah,
in the building.
halfway in the
Okay,
it's yeah,
okay,
it's
okay. So I'm in my mind, I'm just
And it's
assuming
like-
the
yeah.
semi went off the road.
Well, the semi's in the building, and it's like it also hit some other stuff. So it's like this big mangled like
yeah. There's a lot of shit going on.
monstrosity of
This-
twisted metal.
Yeah,
and-
this-
Okay, so that's what. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, basically, when I come around the corner of the semi, the tail end of the semi, I can see the bodies on the ground of what I'm looking at. And basically, the semi had parked itself into the side of this building, and up against the side of the building, it had clearly hit a car attached to a trailer, because the car is pinned into the building, the trailer is pinned into the building. There's other cars that have been like pushed into other cars in the building and stuff like
Okay.
that. Like, there's clearly a bunch of wreckage.
Okay, sorry, I mean to interrupt.
No,
back
no,
to-
you're
yeah,
back
yeah,
to the
that
woman.
gives some good setting. Like,
Yeah, yeah. So, and then there's 3 bodies on the ground. So I look, and by this time, still in this part of my career, I've seen a bunch of dead people. So I see this guy laying on the ground. He's laying pretty normally, actually. You wouldn't. His leg is absolutely fucked up. It's broken 9 ways from hell. But like, other than that, he looks pretty okay. He's just laying on his back, looking up at the sky. He's not blinking. He's not moving. He's not breathing. He's dead as shit. So he also has a bunch of blood, and this is how I knew that he was dead. He had a bunch of blood that had come from his nose and from his mouth, and it was just pooling like right here in the chest. And it was still like he wasn't actively bleeding. So that's how I knew he was dead.
Mhm.
Plus, like, you got the fish eyes thing. Like, I think we've talked about this before. I don't know what the fuck it is about when you die, but there's absolutely something that exists within you that when you're dead, that whatever it is, that soul or whatever,
Leaves.
it's not there.
yeah,
So
you're just looking at meat.
yeah, you can look at someone when they're dead and be like, they are dead.
Wow.
So when I saw him, I knew he wasn't actively bleeding because of that. And then I looked at his eyes and I was like, yeah, he's dead. There's nothing I can do for this guy. So I didn't even try to go over to him or do anything. I just left him there. Well, there was some lady screaming for help over by the semi. So I go over there, and this lady had been pinned. She was trapped in between the trailer and the semi and the building. And she was all like mangled up in there. She couldn't move, and she's screaming stuff. She's like, please help me. I can't move. I can't feel my legs. Like, I hurt. I can't do anything. And so I was like, well, this is way beyond my fucking skill set for her.
Yeah.
Can't do shit for her.
So when people are, I'm sorry to interrupt. When
No.
people are pinned in
Yeah.
situations like that can actually be like the worst thing you can do for them is to like
Start
unpin
pulling on
them.
them. Yeah. So, and I knew that. So I was like, again, it sounds like a cold-hearted asshole thing to do, but at this point I'm doing triage because I'm the only person there. So I have to look at people and be like, you're worth saving, you're not worth saving, like,
Mhm.
and that's what I did with
Yeah,
the guy.
we just don't have time.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
resources.
So that guy was like, can't save you, goodbye. Went to her and I was like, you're way beyond my skill set and there's someone else I have to go check. I'll be back. So with her, I was like, hey, I'm here, help's coming, but you're going to have to wait here. And as I'm leaving, this would come up relevant later, but I didn't know at the time. She's like, where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? Whatever. So I was like, I'll deal with this later. Leave. And I run over to some other dude. This guy had broken the fuck out of his leg and his bone was like sticking out and he's bleeding from it and stuff. But that one wasn't bad. There were some other ladies there and they had taken off his belt and tied it around his leg.
Oh, tourniquet.
Yes, they were trying to do that.
Like a
They, of course, don't
makeshift-
know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I got by this time showed up.
Okay, good.
So and he was in training. So I got and I was like, hey, go over there and put a tourniquet on that guy's leg because like they're trying to help, but they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Ours
Well,
is better.
Makeshift tourniquets don't work very well anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And who knows how long this is going to fucking
Yeah,
take,
yeah.
like whatever. So I told him, I was like, go put a tourniquet on that guy's leg. He's like, okay, cool. By that time, more units are showing up, this kind of thing. So I go back to the woman. I was like, hey, what is your name? Where's your daughter? Like, where's the last time you saw her? That kind of thing. Because I'm operating under the assumption that that girl I saw wasn't, because I have no idea what's going on. I don't know who these people are. I don't know how many people are involved. There could absolutely be people under the vehicles and stuff. So I was like, okay, whatever. Talked to her for a little bit. EMS shows up and they say the same thing I did. They're like, well, we got to deal with this old man and that like little girl and all this other shit because we can't really do much with her until we get some of this shit like off of
Or
her.
to, like clear wreckage.
Yeah, exactly. To get to her to render aid. And that's going to require more resources, jaws of life,
Mhm.
things like that. So they're like, we got to
Fire
wait on that.
department.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I start looking under vehicles for more bodies and more people, and I look for a long time. I don't fucking find anything. Well, eventually, the driver of the semi opens the window and crawls out of it, and I've shined my flashlight. I'm like, hey, are you okay? Like, yeah, I'm fine. I was like, come down, because I knew it was going to happen, because things like this,
Oh, yeah.
people get fucking pissed, and they start swarming, and they start trying, like, basically you'll have a mob,
Yeah.
and they'll, like, try to kill you or shit like that. So I was like, hey, get the fuck over here quickly. Like, hurry the fuck up, and you're going to come over here to my car, and you're going to go sit in the back seat. And she was like, oh, man, like, that's so weird. Like, they yelled at me. Like, why are they yelling at me? I was like, you're lucky that's all they've fucking done so far. Wait until they
Yeah.
fucking see that you're the one that caused this shit.
Yeah.
So anyways, pull the driver out, put him in my car, and I leave him there, which was great because later on everyone's like, where's the fucking driver? Where's the... And I was like, well, don't know where that fucking person went. Wow.
I have no idea.
Exactly. So anyways, we get done dealing with that. And my sergeant had shown up and he started trying to work on the dead guy and he was trying to do CPR. It wasn't working because his chest had caved in, so there was no...
Mm-hmm.
Plus he's dead, but
Yeah.
he's trying to do stuff and it probably makes the family feel better to see that...
Attempt was made.
Yeah, so he comes over, he's like, Flores, translate. So I'm over there and I'm like, hey, you know, are you okay? Of course she's not answering. He's dead, that kind of thing. So we get done dealing with him. Eventually pull the lady out, find out that's mom of the girl. She goes to the hospital. That guy goes to the hospital. Really long story short, what ends up happening with this? Those people took the girl to the hospital themselves, by the way.
Okay, yeah.
They threw her in the car and then took off. Because later on, I'm
Yeah,
running
good on
around.
them.
Yeah, later on, I'm running around. I'm like, hey, who has the girl, the little girl? And then everyone's gonna be like, who are you talking about? I was like, there's a little girl. Her foot's cut off, or like almost cut off, whatever the fuck. Like, where is she? And they're like, we don't know who you're talking about. But anyways, she was at the hospital already. So basically, what happened with this incident, and I know it's gonna be difficult without doing like a picture
Mm-hmm.
of it, so I'll
Mhm.
try to describe it as best as possible. This event center that night had been hosting a wedding reception. They were there preparing for the next day when the actual wedding was going to take place. So all of these people were here unloading cars and trailers with decorations and setting up and things like that for their party the following day. So all these people were outside and inside the building. And there was like 20 or 30. And meanwhile, the truck stop is having its normal business. People are,
Mhm.
sleeping there, parked there, whatever the fuck. It's normal. Well, the road that runs right next to where this happens is a major highway. So there's all kinds of cars going on like all day and all night.
Mhm.
This one driver of the semi who had just a semi, not the trailer, thank fucking God. I mean, it's still not great, but they just
Yeah.
had the semi.
Just the truck.
Yeah, just the truck. So this semi driver was driving southbound, and there was another semi with a semi and a trailer traveling right next to them. So there's one in the inside lane and one in the outside lane. The one traveling southbound in the inside lane tried to make a lane change unsuccessfully because they didn't check like their surroundings very well.
Yeah, mirrors and all that.
Yeah, and they clipped the other semi driver, their trailer. So then this driver freaked out, and instead of just stopping or pulling over, or whatever, for whatever fucking reason, their first option was to panic, and they cut the wheel as far to the left as they could,
Yeah.
and then sped up. And so then this semi made, I shit you not, a full circle because again, I know it's really difficult to explain. I'd have to
Yeah.
draw it. They make a full circle and they go over the median. They go over all lanes of oncoming traffic. They go over the grass for the business, that gas station. They drive through the gas pumps. And
They
then
almost hit the pumps.
they almost hit the pumps, but they missed it by like a foot or two.
Golly.
They drive through the gas pumps, through the parking lot, and then by this time the vehicle turns back around and it's facing that venue. So they made like a complete U-E essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
A very
then
high speed one.
yeah, and then they kind of straightened out the wheel at that point, and it drove straight into that wedding reception that was there for that party. And that's what all those people were that were
And just ran into people.
yeah, just ran into cars and people. So like the backside of this, like that one's obviously not great. That dude died. That was the dad too, the dad of the little girl. Dad died. Mom had to have multiple surgeries. So did daughter. Grandpa was pretty okay, like still fucked up. Had to have some stuff happen, but
The grandpa was the one who broke his leg.
yeah. But the cool thing about this one is that it's not great. No one really likes talking about these sort of things. But what I found really cool is during that investigation, everything that came out after the fact, because we eventually subpoenaed the dash cam footage for her car, the semi driver. And what was really cool about that one that not many people can appreciate, and I get it, because if you're the little girl or the wife, it was their reception, by the way.
Oh,
yeah. If you're,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, if you're not going to appreciate that detail because it's just mired by the fact that your husband was killed, you know, your daughter lost a father, like all that kind of, and I understand that. But the cool thing about that was that right before this happens, these people, the mom, the dad, the daughter, all the other family members and guests and stuff, some of them are standing inside the building, some are standing outside the building next to all these cars and trailers and things like that. Well, the little girl is standing on this guy's right outside the door, and she would have been standing exactly where the semi hit. But anyways, they're standing there conversing, minding their own business. Well, she has this accident and then starts doing the U-E.
Like deadly U-turn.
Yeah, starts doing her deadly U-turn and comes right at him. Well, you can see on the cameras that this is from and from the dash cam.
Truck dash cam.
Yeah, so you can see on camera they're sitting there and they realize that it's a problem and they only have a split second to react.
Yeah.
So this guy's final moments, which I found to be actually really cool, really poetic, really whatever.
Yeah.
He looks up and sees that this is a fucking problem, and he takes his daughter, his little girl who's like 5 at the time, 5, 6, something like that.
Yeah.
He takes her, picks her up and throws her as hard as he can to the left. So like she got hurt, of course, but
yeah.
He throws her as far as she can to the left, and then as soon as he gets done throwing her, the semi hits him and kills him instantly. And then, meanwhile, though, because of all the debris, she got hit by the trailers and stuff, and that's what fucked up her leg.
And that's why it chopped her foot off.
Yeah, but that's the only reason why she survived was because her dad was like, oh no, and then
she was about to get squished by a semi.
Yeah, she would be dead had her dad not did what he did. So I find that part to be actually like really cool. But no one ever talks about that because of course it's still a sad thing.
Yeah, it's kind of overshadowed by the huge chaotic
It
scene.
shouldn't be overshadowed.
No,
that was his last act in life was to save his daughter.
And I'm sure he knew that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure he knew it because
in a split second, and he didn't even hesitate.
No, he didn't. He sure as shit was like, oh.
Yeah,
and that was it. Like
good parents wouldn't hesitate.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
so
that shouldn't be overshadowed. That should be praised. That should be. I mean, it's a horrible accident and tragedy, but
well,
golly,
like those people
to keep his memory alive, he was a hero.
Those people didn't do anything wrong. Like they're just doing their thing, and then this god awful tragedy has befallen them, and that is cool that was his the last thing he did with his life. Yeah.
But that whole thing was a cluster because, of course, it involved a whole family of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a whole bunch of witnesses that came out to fucking add confusion and then fucking yell and scream. And this is also where you get into the whole like there's fight or flight, and there's a lot of people. Most people are flight, honestly.
Yeah.
But a lot of those people irritate me
freeze.
because they come out and they just yell and scream to just add to the chaos of everything.
Yeah, like they're not helping.
Yeah, like you're not involved.
Yeah.
You have nothing to do with this. There's no reason for you to come over here to look at stuff. It'd be different if you came over here and you're trying to help.
Yeah, if you're running up and you're like, hey, I have a tourniquet, or, you know.
But you're literally running over here to go,
yeah. And that's all some people do is like they literally just get in your way and scream.
Yeah, and so, but anyways.
Or they film or.
Yeah, and so that happened. Well, like it was a cluster because it took like a shit ton of cops, a shit ton of medical. There were a bunch of units. Well, people went to the hospitals and the hospitals started getting flooded. So we had to send cops to the hospital to keep from the mob forcing its way into the ER room where all of our fucking
because they'll do the same thing there. They'll get in the doctor's way, and the
they'll be like,
way.
"Well, that's my niece." It's like, "Well, get the fuck out!" Like I don't care.
You want us to help her or not?
Yeah.
Like,
so, but people panic in that scenario and they make things much worse. So that turned into a giant clusterfuck deluxe.
Yeah.
But anyways, so that one was I'd had the first fatality, certainly one of the most gnarly ones in a hot minute.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the first in a long time city vehicle fatalities.
Yep. So I had that one. I called out this asshole to help me because
Yeah.
he called me and was like, "Hey, brother, could you use help?" And I
I was just out driving. Like I was off duty, and I drove past this truck stop, and I saw all of this chaos. And I think there was like 3 cop cars out there already.
oh god.
But I knew
there's
you were
shit ton.
working
God.
because this time we were roommates,
Yes. Yeah.
and so I was like, "Oh yeah, I know my roomie Flores is working tonight." And then I drove past this crisis, and I think there were like 3 of y'all out there already, and I was like, "Ooh, God, that doesn't look good." And so I call you, and you didn't answer at first, and I was like, "Well, shoot." So I keep on heading back to the apartment, and then you call me back, and I was like, "Hey, like I just drove by, like, you guys need a hand?" And you're like, no, I think we got it under control now." And then like you called back again, like 2 minutes later, and they're like, "Get out here."
Yeah. The reason why I did that was because I didn't have the authority to call anyone out. So I told him
Yeah.
no, and then I went back to my boss, and I didn't have to say anything. My chief of police came out, and he was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, this is call anyone." And so
Who's available?
Yeah. And so then I called Finn, and I was like, "Actually, I changed my mind, bro. How about you come out here?" Because he's like, "I don't
Yeah.
care who you call, but call him." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." And then I
Okay. Yeah.
started calling people.
Yeah, so I threw my uniform on and everything, and I got out there, and now I didn't see what you saw because by the time I
Yeah.
got out there, like there were still people running around screaming, acting crazy,
Yeah.
but like EMS or fire, or someone was already zipping up Dad in a body bag.
Yep.
Like I saw them bagging him up, and then
Yep.
they were still working on getting Mom unpinned from
Yeah.
that trailer thing. And then I was like, "Hey, like what is needed?" And I got stuck on directing traffic because everyone's driving up now trying to go look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I direct traffic for like an hour or two. And it's crazy. People are always just
Yeah.
so difficult during that because like
Extra.
you're out there and like this horrible tragedy just happened, and people are trying to like complicate the situation by driving up there and looking and getting in the way and doing all this stuff. So you're like shooing them away, like, "Hey, keep going, shark attack, nothing to see here." And constantly you're just gonna have people flipping you off,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, get the fuck out of the road,"
Yeah,
blah
yeah.
blah. It's like, dude, just go. Like
Yeah,
this is
they're
none of your
fucking
business. So,
retarded.
yeah.
But yeah, so that happened, and that's also my one and only time that I had, because when you're in the county, you don't work accidents. I mean, you go and help,
Yeah.
but you don't do the CR3s.
The investigative report.
Yeah. So that was also the one and only time that I ever had to do a fatality CR3.
And a
And-
CR3 is a crash report.
Yeah, I'm
like
sorry.
document for those who don't know.
It goes to the state and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I had to do that because my agency and the fucking Texas Highway Patrol spent 40 minutes arguing about whose accident it is.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And ultimately, my agency lost that battle. And then instead
It's
of
the cities.
instead of the actual person who's certified to do the fatality reports doing it, because he saw because it's the longest CR3 I've ever done in my
It was
life
a mess.
and I've ever
Yeah.
seen, because there was like, oh my god, I can't remember. It was like 24 units, because there was like
Yeah. So
there's like 12 or 16 different cars and
that were
trailers.
damaged.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 different structures.
So to document all that, like per the state reporting
Yeah.
requirements, like I don't even know how you would do it. I don't know how you did this.
Oh, it's
like,
awful.
yeah.
It took me one whole shift to sit down and add
a 12-hour go at
all of the people and pedestrians, all of the buildings, all of
Yeah.
the different CMVs, all of the
Mhm.
different units, and it was awful.
Yeah. Terrible.
So I had to do that, and I did that
Because
and
the person that was trained and certified to do it didn't want to.
didn't want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I got fucked.
Yeah. They're like, "Well, Flores, you got here first, so I guess you have to do it."
Yeah,
Like,
this is yours. And I was left to stand there, and I was like, but like, this is this person's job.
What do I do?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, well, but this person doesn't want to do it, so you're gonna do it, and this person's gonna do something else. And it's like,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
I guess
Roger
whatever.
that. Like
Roger
mhm.
Dodger.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened to the semi driver? Did they
That
get-
one. So interestingly enough, that person was not drunk, because we did blood warrants
Yeah.
on both semis.
Yeah. Doing
Uh,
like a DWI investigation.
Yeah, essentially, because you want to, of course, make sure that everything's good. And so this is also
Mm-hmm.
the next sad part that brings up kind of like one of those questions of what would you do? What do you think should be done? this person was never charged with anything. No negligent homicide,
Reckless.
no reckless,
driving?
nothing. No, they never got charged anything.
They just called it an accident.
Yeah, they just called it an accident and said, well, accidents happen, move on. So, but we did do blood warrants, so we know for a fact, and she was interviewed and all that.
Mm-hmm.
She was not drunk. She was not high. She had nothing in her system, no impaired, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
What happened with this, what in my belief is that this person just plainly should never have been allowed to be a semi-truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
This person was from a foreign country and was one of the immigrants that gets brought in here all the time, specifically as like a refugee.
Yeah.
To do this specific job.
Well, they do jobs that they're not qualified for.
Yeah, and they had never had training in it or whatever. They literally just went, well, you're going to come here to the U.S. and we're going to get you a job and we're going to set you up here.
You're going to drive this truck for $6 an hour.
And that's what happened. Yeah. So she had actually, this person got done with their certification for truck driving school thing and was certified to do it and had only been, like, this was her first run. She had never, like, she didn't have, like, she'd finished the training with the other driver, but now, like, she was on her own. This was her first one. She'd been a truck driver for less than, like, I don't know, 3, 6 months, whatever
really
the fuck it
short
was.
Amount of time. And
wow.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say that, like, do I think that she was, like, malicious? No. She just,
there's no intent there
no,
to
she
hurt
just
anyone, but
she was inept, essentially. Like, she's clearly the kind of person that she shuts down, and that's what I think she did.
Yeah.
I don't think
well, like, I guess she gets clipped by this other truck.
Yeah.
Or maybe she clipped them. I don't remember how it went down.
Them.
And she's like, oh my God, I got to get away from this. And hits the gas and pulls that wheel. And this is what happened.
And that's what happened. So this brings up the next question where it's like, okay, well, and see, like, later on, I got a little irritated because my agency got mad at me because they're like, why didn't you file the charges against her? And so then I was like, I don't fucking know. I figured something like this was going to be something that CID does, like the Criminal Investigations Division.
Maybe the guy who's trained to handle the fatal accidents.
I was like, all I did was show up and do what I could do, and then I rendered what medical I could, and then I put all the information together, and I did the accident report.
This isn't. I'm not the one who's in charge of this case.
Yeah, but later on they get mad at me though because they were like, "Hey, you should have filed charge." Because someone called, I think it was the family called later on. They're like, "Why didn't you charge her with crimes or whatever?" And this is another thing that I would get mad about for my agency. They're pussies at this time.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't, instead of telling this lady like, hey, we don't have anything, like, accidents happen, I know that's not what you want to hear, but we're not going to charge her with a crime because none was committed, or yeah, you're right, we'll file this charge and we'll send it on up and we'll see what the courts have to say. But instead of doing that, they went, yeah, that does suck, sorry you're mad. And then they went, Flores, why didn't you do this, you piece of shit? So I got mad about that. But so anyways, on the back end of that, no, I never filed charges on her, but I sent that up to people more important to me, and I assumed that they were going to do something with it.
Like when you send it up from the patrol level, like it's supposed to go to someone who reviews the case and does XYZ to button it up.
The patrol officer doesn't file charges.
Well, they do.
Do they?
They do, but
like this is an unusual.
Yeah, this is something that we would just be like, hey, you guys are more experienced. You talk to more people. You have whatever, like. I have compiled the basic info for what happened. Now you determine what the fuck. Like, patrol does the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And
for basic stuff,
we're talking like
they make charges,
and,
but
like,
this is complicated.
It's different at different agencies, but like around here locally where we work, like it's not unheard of for a patrol to just go ahead and work something, know what happened, have the right elements met, articulate it in a report, and file the charges. Like, that's a thing that can happen. But this is such a large scale debacle that, like, this should have, in my opinion, gone up to more seasoned people who specialize in building these cases and everything, and should have made sure that was 100% buttoned up and squared away before they were done with it.
Essentially what they did is they fulfilled a case management role with my thing, and they took all of the info I had and went, okay, and then they approved it, and that was it. And it didn't go anywhere because no criminal charges were filed. They didn't, it seems like, ever sit down and go, should we file charges? Hey, Flores, why didn't you file charges? Because that's the thing, is that it had to go somewhere. And so, like, that didn't get brought up, though, until someone later on down the line complained and was like, hey, is this person ever going to go to court? Like, what the fuck? And then they went, yeah, no charges were filed. And then, of course, the person went, well, I'm mad about that. And then they came back and were like, Flores, how come you never filed charges?
They tried to find someone to blame.
Yeah, basically. And me being like, I'm low man on the fucking totem pole. So instead of someone ever going to bat for me and being like, well, yeah, Flores, you probably should have done that, whatever, or be like, hey, why didn't you? And my response would have been, well, it was going to go to people more experienced and more important than me. So I thought they would deal with it, and I just go move on and I take care of the next call because that's what I'm supposed to do as a fucking patrol officer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
your
Instead, they
assigned
just
role.
get mad at you.
yeah, they got mad at me. They didn't like me. I don't. Well, I mean, at that time they're okay, but this is when the cracks in the agency start to kind
Yeah.
of sow themselves.
When you can kind of
show.
see like early signs of that with like
Yeah.
the person who's supposed to do certain things just saying like, nah,
I don't
like,
want to.
to.
Yeah, and no one questioned. That's the other thing is that higher management should have been like,
No,
No.
like this is your job.
this is your job. You are going to do this. And that's also kind of like my sergeant at the time should have said something and stood up for me and been like, no, she's not
Yeah.
doing this. Like, this is your job.
Yeah.
But to be fair, my sergeant at the time was a brand new supervisor. Like, he was as much in the weeds
Yeah.
as I was with being like, wow, fucking no, this is my first one. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these like types of cases that are these huge debacles, like Murphy's Law comes into play, where
Yeah.
like you always have this thing where like, okay, of course this huge god awful shit show would happen with people who are new to this thing.
Yeah,
Because
that have never dealt with
yeah.
it before.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why would this happen to people who have seen this before and are already really seasoned with it? It could
Exactly.
just exactly. So
But yeah, so basically you get the point. But that was that one time I had that fatality.
multiple. So-
Well, yeah, since then, but
well, yeah,
well,
but
not in the
there's multiple in
city.
just that one. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
No, there's just one.
there's just one.
Oh, okay.
dad-
I'm
yeah.
sorry. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
there
one.
was just the one.
Yeah,
But yeah,
everyone else
there's
survived.
multiple injured. But
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
I also should have got a letter commendation for that, but never did.
that seems to be a common theme in your career.
You might have saved that little girl's life. The dad did, and then you tourniquet her
Yeah.
leg, but nah,
never-
it's
I
fine.
never
They
got
just
it.
get
Yeah.
mad at you.
I never got anything.
But hey, guess what?
Yeah, what?
That's another segue.
Oh God, what are we talking about now?
So
Oh,
we've talked
yeah.
about we've talked about death and horrifying, awful things and everything, the end of a lot of lives. And then we did talk about a more hopeful case where there was almost the end of a life, but it
Yeah.
was an almost 10-7, not quite.
Great.
But to kind of wrap up part 2 here, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you are the recipient of not one, but 2 actual formal life-saving awards.
Yes.
And you have decorations for those and everything.
That is correct.
You should tell us about how you prevented not 1, but 2
Fantastic.
10-7s.
Thank you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the moral of the story here is that me good at break bones.
Why am I not surprised? Why
Yeah,
am I not surprised?
I'm really good at cooking indoors. I've kicked in a lot of fucking doors. I'm real good at breaking bones. I've done that. I've done that to myself before, punching a dude in the face one time. But anyways, so to preface what you're saying, real early on in my career, I think I'd been a cop for like 6 months. I was minding my own business on patrol one day, and then I was day shift at this time.
Yeah.
And suddenly, I get dispatched to one of our local cafes here that we all used to go hang out all the time.
Yep.
It's been destroyed since then because it had a fire and it's torn down now.
Yeah. But it shall be rebuilt.
It shall be rebuilt, yeah. But as of right now, it's gone. This building no longer exists where this happened.
Yeah, no.
But-
It's 10-7.
Yeah, it's 10-7 as well. I couldn't save the building. But so anyways, I get dispatched to this local cafe, and it's pretty infamous because all of the old local, men that have lived here all their lives,
Yeah.
they go there every morning for coffee to hang out with each other and catch up and talk and whatnot.
Yeah. This place is like your stereotypical, like,
Mom and
small town
pop,
Texas
yeah.
community, like, social hub.
Yeah, a lot of people go there all the time
Yeah.
just to hang out, have a coffee, or
Yeah.
just to eat or whatever.
Yeah,
fuck.
have a meal, whatever.
Yeah, but on this particular day, I get sent there for an unresponsive male not breathing. So I show up, and sure as shit, there's this old man that has seemingly just dropped dead in the middle of the restaurant. So I was like, wow. This building was pretty cool because it had one of those like pull-out things where you could close.
Oh, yeah. You could
The-
section off
yeah, you
the
could
side
section
of it.
it
Like
off,
for
yeah, so
private events.
Yeah, that was nice because I
Yeah.
actually told him as soon as I showed up, he was wearing all these layers. And it's actually really cool because you don't think about like your training so much until things happen.
Yeah.
And then you
Now it's
automatically
real.
react. And then you're like, oh, that is cool. I did retain that information.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now I have used it and I feel like super squared away and well learned and whatever.
Yeah.
But I showed up and I was like, yeah, this dude's dead. So I checked for pulses and stuff. And yeah, he's fucking dead. So I started immediately ripping off all of his layers to get to like as
Yeah.
few as possible. And while I'm doing that, I'm looking around and I tell the waitresses, I'm like, hey, close that section. Like, don't
Yeah.
let people come back here or whatnot.
Yeah, well, give us some space. We
Yeah.
don't need people running up here getting in the way.
Other people fuck off. And there was a lady there that was part of that group, but she was actually a retired nurse because they're all, well, like, they're older people.
Yeah.
So it was like, perfect. We're helping now. And so she starts doing the breaths and I'm doing the chest compressions to start rendering CPR. So I do CPR. She does the breaths, and we both take turns. And we do this for a while, and then eventually medical shows up, and we get the defibrillator out, we attach it to this dude. He comes back, and then we lose him again, and then he comes back again, and this time he stays, and he gets carted off. Well, the funny thing about this, at one point he gets brought back, and his first words out of his mouth are like, "Which one of you motherfuckers brought me back?" And I was like, "Whoa!" Apparently, he wanted to stay dead.
He's a spicy old man.
He's a spicy old man. Like, whoops. So he's like a little cantankerous, and then they load him up and they take him away, and he survived.
Wow, yeah,
And
nice.
and then they did their little thing, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, well, we found out that you in fact did directly contribute to the continued existence of this spicy old man that had a DNR that did not want to be alive.
What's a DNR?
Okay.
Do not resuscitate.
It's a
Oh,
do
yeah.
not resuscitate
did?
order.
He did have a DNR, but I didn't fucking know it.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
Nor do I
Oh,
care.
yeah.
And nor do I care. Like,
You're not gonna get in trouble for that. Because
No.
yeah.
no, I mean, you're in
Yeah.
good faith. Who
Exactly,
the hell?
in good faith.
Yeah, who the hell would be sitting there and being like, "I'm going to bring this person back from death," and then
Yeah.
they get
Yeah.
brought back, and you're like, "Fuck you! Now I'm gonna sue you." Like,
Yeah, like it's like The Incredibles.
Yeah,
yeah,
like, bitch, my whole
Which one of
purpose
you
here.
motherfuckers
Yeah,
brought me
yeah,
back?
It's like, bitch, my whole purpose for existing here is to protect and preserve the loss of life and property.
Mhm,
That's literally
yeah.
my job. So no, I'm fine. But yeah, he was a
Yeah.
little. And then, to be fair, a couple years later, he was like, "You know what? I'm glad that y'all brought me back," because he got to be around for his grandkids
Mhm.
stuff a little more and things like
yeah.
that. So he was fine with it. But at the moment, he was not fine with it. But
Little
now he's
did he
okay.
know, though, he was getting brought back to someone even saltier than him.
Yeah,
It's like,
for real.
you're not leaving that easy, bitch.
Yeah,
Like-
pretty much is like, you still got shit to do, motherfucker. But yeah, so-
I'm not letting you punch out just yet, you bastard.
So that this ought to tell you that kind of my agency too. The funny thing about this is when they gave me my life-saving award, this is how I knew, again, the cracks.
Mhm.
This is how I knew that they probably don't care as much as they should have. My life-saving award, you could tell, was someone else had received this award at some time, and they just went and plugged in the info for
Changed
mine.
the
Oh
name.
my god.
Yeah, because when it said, Kylie Flores, and then it had the date that it happened and the general details of what the fuck happened. But everywhere where it gendered, I was he.
Are you serious? They didn't
Yeah.
even change that?
No, they didn't change it. Everywhere where it was
Damn.
gendered, I was he. Like,
Come
he did
on,
this,
people,
he
this is
did
the
that.
life-saving award.
And so then, and my name was also misspelled. I forgot about that.
Oh my god.
Oh, I remember
yeah,
that.
my
yeah.
name was misspelled. So
Well,
I
'cause
got
you showed
the-
it to me and you were
What?
like, look at this shit.
Look
And
at
I
it,
was
yeah.
like, who's this? Like-
exactly, exactly. So then I took it back to them and I was like, hey, my name is misspelled.
Can you correct
And
this?
it says he. And they went, oh, sorry, let's fix that. And I went with them, and this is how I figured out what they did. They went back to the computer, pulled up my award, and they typed out my name and then printed it. And it printed from the printer in the office. So it's just normal printer paper. Printed it from there and then put it back in the little plaque and nailed it to the thing. And then I looked at it and it still had he in there. And so then I was like, you know what? This is fine. Don't touch it again.
Whatever. Yeah.
And they were like, okay, cool. And then I fucked off and I have it. Well, then the next time I got a life-saving award, it also is he and everything that they did.
Oh my god.
They never did change that either. But my name is spelled right in that one.
Oh wow. We're gonna put a picture when we
So you can
release this
see them.
episode. I want to put the pictures on Facebook and be like, these are because that's an attention grabber and it's
Yeah.
funny. So.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll bring them. But yeah, they both still say he. It's literally like Officer Kiley Flores should be proud of the work that he himself has done, or what
like he
it's- yeah.
selflessly blah blah
yeah,
blah.
he selflessly did this. He went
Oh my
above and
gosh,
beyond
these
his
people
duties.
They don't care.
No, they don't. Yeah.
No.
And so, and that's sad because those are years apart. Like that first one happened when I was pretty new, and then the next one I got happened at.
There's a lot of stuff that happened to you.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you were really new. Like you
Oh,
were
yeah.
drinking from a fire hose
Oh,
when you
yeah.
first got on.
Yeah, I have quite a few high mileage, but the next award and this is the other
Yeah.
thing, and y'all would tell me this later on. The guy that was the detective before me, when he did my background, I got salty about this later because, as you now know, I had a falling out with this agency. I left when I came back to the area. He told me, he's like, hey bro, how many life-saving awards do you have? How many commendations do you have? And so I was like, well, I only have 2. What the fuck are you talking about? He's like, you what? I was like, yeah, I only have 2. And he's like, well, I did your background. I saw your file, and your file is fucking full of letters of recommendations for commendations for you. You only have 2 because I saw all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got mad because I was like, you're telling me that these like my coworkers, my supervisors, my friends or whatnot were putting in for me to receive recognition,
Yeah.
and I just never got anything.
Wow.
Which I know this job isn't about it, but it is nice to be like, hey,
well,
one time
after a while, you
Yeah.
do want you do some.
Oh, yeah.
Some recognition kind of keeps you going.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
and the thing is, and this is me speaking for myself, but I feel that a lot of people feel the same way about it. But
Yeah.
the actual like recognition, like the awards and stuff, they're cool to receive for yourself and everything, but
Yeah.
they're really more so cool for like your family
Yeah.
to look at because
Yeah.
like these other people that love you and care about you, like it's cool to be able to show them like, hey, like this is what I do for a living and like it's
do-
worthwhile.
Yeah. I did
and, like,
good stuff.
Yeah, this is like a cool thing that like your family can basically be honored by.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. My family is like, oh, yeah, my daughter has done this and this.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
This. Yeah.
And so that's why it's like really cool because like it's that, but
Yeah,
anyway.
but I have nothing to show for that. What I do have is 2 things, and I'm he for those.
Yeah, that's
I'm
cool.
trans.
Yeah, you're trans.
Basically, I'm trans for those 2 incidents.
So
like
what
damn,
was
Kyle.
what was the other life-saving award for?
Oh, okay. Oh, so like, well, kind of going back to that one. Whenever I was doing CPR, yeah, I kind of crunched his ribs a little bit, so they got broketed.
Oh yeah, so that's
Oh,
actually
geez.
Yeah,
I
that
think we've
happens.
talked about it on this podcast before.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have for a fact, but yeah, broken ribs do happen during CPR, and
Yeah.
CPR is a lot more physically demanding than people think it is.
Yeah.
If you've never tried it, but like, there's even guys that like we're gonna have a guy on the show at some point that works for our agency that everyone pokes fun at him because he's in terrific shape. He's like basically an Olympic athlete. I
Yep.
hope he listens to this because he's so muscular and everything. But anyway, no, he's even mentioned that like dude, like
It's-
he's in great shape, but he's
yeah.
like CPR will wear you out, man.
Yeah, it's
like,
very taxing.
yeah, very taxing. So, but yeah, broken ribs happen. So.
Yeah. So, anyways, the second incident, I was doing the exact same thing, although it's years later into my career. I'm at like year 5 or 6 at this point. And I think I was a supervisor. I don't fucking know. Can't remember.
Yeah.
Driving around, minding my own business. It's now night shift. I'm doing something, and I get sent to this other place for unresponsive mail. That's it. So I show up, and there's this car, and I recognize the car immediately because we used to deal with this kid all the time. He wasn't like the shittiest of the shittiest, but he's a little bit of a hellion. Like he's mainly racing and has like weed and stuff. Like he's not awful, but whatever. We still deal
He
with
just
him.
keeps getting in a little peddly trouble.
So dealt with this car, and so I pull up and I'm like, oh god, this kid. So I get out, I come around the corner. Well, some lady, it's his mom, but I don't know that yet. His mom is like screaming and is like, help, help. He's not breathing, whatever, you know. And so she's got the door open. He's sitting in the car. And so I come around the corner, and because it's a low rider little car, so I have to kind of like squat to fucking look and shit.
Yeah.
So I look at him, and the way that his face was, and he was foaming and stuff, I knew immediately like this is not a normal like thing. He didn't just suddenly, die or whatever the hell. So, well, he did suddenly die, but you know what I mean. I was like, okay, this isn't just had a little seizure, I'm dead now.
Yeah.
Or, clearly he didn't shoot himself in the face or whatever the hell. So, and I knew from previous experience with him that it was probably narcotics related. And I didn't suspect alcohol because I didn't smell any, and he didn't like throw up all over himself. So whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, his lips are this color. He's foaming from the mouth, all this other shit. He's still pretty warm-ish, kind of cold, but whatever. He's been here for a little bit. But I turned to her and I was like, what did he take? And then I start pulling him out of the car. So I remove him because he was sitting up straight in the driver's seat. So I pull him out of the car, I drag him away from the car a little bit, and I put him on the ground, and I start, fucking with his clothes to get a better position to do CPR.
Yeah.
I start checking his mouth, seeing if he's got anything in his fucking shit.
Obstructing his airway.
Yeah, and so I'm doing all these little things and checking for pulses and stuff while I'm talking to her. And she's like, oh, he didn't take anything. I don't, or she like, at first she's like, I don't know. And then she's like, well, he didn't take anything. He just does weed. And so I told her, like, this isn't just weed. What did he take? And she's like, no, all he does is weed, I swear. And I was like, well, you don't know everything, or he's lying or something, because this isn't weed. You're not, like, this doesn't happen from marijuana.
Been laced with something.
Yeah, and she was like, no, he just does weed or whatever. So anyways, start doing CPR and shit. More units start showing up, and EMS shows up and whatnot, and I'm still doing CPR. Well, at some point in time, this is the dangerous thing about CPR and stuff like that. he comes back and he goes like, fucking sits up. And so like I grab him and I push him back down to the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey man, like, nice of you to come back. Like, why don't you just lay here? Like, don't do anything.
Just relax for a second.
Yeah, just relax for a minute and kind of just hang out. Well, he starts fucking fighting.
Yeah.
Because you're in that fight or flight response. Yeah. Well, by this time, like EMS is there too, so we just kind of grab his arms. And we're like, no, like, how about you just chill, brother?
like, don't punch us.
Yeah,
man.
don't
we're
punch
your
us.
friends.
We're literally just here to bring you back from death and all this other kind of shit. So, but he comes back and he's like, woo, kind of looking around and is freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
But now mom is a little more calm because she's like, oh god, he's alive again. And everything's good, whatever. So by this time, another little girl came out. Long story short, after doing the initial investigation, this kid took fentanyl.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he experimented at some point. He took fentanyl and it killed him. And then I brought his ass back. And then he went to the hospital and they treated him and released him and he survived and he lives to this day. And I didn't know it, but probably the reason I got commended for that was because he's actually the grandson of a judge here. So
yeah,
but they still called
they
you
still
a
fucked
he?
up my shit. Yeah, they still fucked up my
he
shit.
acted so selflessly saving this kid. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, that's that one. So
wow.
yeah, he's
But
doing good.
that's-
I saw him years later on a traffic stop.
Yeah.
And I walked past him and I recognized him and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that is who that is. And this is just me being the little cantankerous stinker that I am. I walked past him because he didn't recognize me, didn't know who I was. And I was like, you look different when you're alive. And then I turned around and walked away. And he just like kind of smirked. He's like,
Like, what?
what? And I just walked away.
I wonder if he remembers you at all.
I don't know. Probably not. It's
You look
okay.
different when you're alive.
Oh, that's good. I need to put that on a shirt.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. But yeah, so those are my 2 life-saving awards. That's
Wow.
not counting the other times I plugged bullet holes or whatever.
Oh
the fuck.
man. Yeah, no, I too was involved in some.
Oh yeah, you didn't get one because you had the audacity to leave. You fuck.
Yeah, well,
That's all it was.
I won't get into that right now.
No,
but
okay.
yeah.
I'm sorry. You can cut that.
Well, no, we'll leave it in. Fuck it. But that just goes to show you, like, there's so much stuff that, like,
Yeah.
just any, like, average cop is gonna get exposed to that, like, most of it you're not gonna get, like, awarded for. It's not like every day you go to
Oh,
work
yeah.
and you get awards.
Oh yeah.
But there are these certain cases where it's a little unusual or, like, just something really crazy happens, and this is a thing. Sometimes you get actual formal awards, and usually the way that looks is like you get some kind of like award citation, which is like the little readout that basically says, hey, on this day at this time, this officer, this deputy did this cool thing and it saved this person's life, or it did this or it did that. And you get like sometimes a medal, or you get like a uniform decoration that you can wear on your Class A uniforms that designates that you did a cool thing. There's cool little attaboys like that. But that's cool that for all the deep, dark, horrific 10-7 death that you've come across in your career so far, and I'm sure more to come, you do have these 2 actual formally recognized, although it gets your gender wrong, like attaboys for saving a life and preventing a 10-7.
Yes,
Not once, but twice.
Yeah, thank
which
you.
is really cool.
I try not to get like too salty about the whole like, well, you fucked up my name and the gender and whatever.
It's
Because
more
at the end of the
funny
day, I'm like, you know what? Not many people can say, even in Copland, that they ever saved life. At least, and then of
and
course,
got
multiple
formally
times.
recognized for it.
Yeah, so I try to just be like, you know what? It doesn't fucking matter.
And we've talked about it on this show before with like, there's so many unquantifiable things in law enforcement.
Yeah,
It's like,
absolutely.
it's possible that you do go out and for 700 days in a row you saved lives right and left, but you'll just never know because there's no way to confirm like, oh yep, life saved, put a tally on there. But in these rare instances where we can put a tally there and we can confirm that like, yes, a life was saved due to your actions directly, that's super cool. So
well, thank you.
So good deal.
I feel better now.
Good. I'm glad.
Feel
this
validated.
Yeah, I feel
has been,
validated.
I hope this has
thanks.
been therapeutic.
It has. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna go home and cry.
That's great.
I'm gonna go to the store and cry.
Okay, that's fair.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking at the clock right now, so
You want to talk what it was the ODMP?
Yes. So we need.
okay.
We're almost out of time, but real quick, we've gone through a bunch of 10-7 stuff. We're kind of ending this on a more positive note of these life-saving awards, which are awesome. But the last thing that I'm going to ask you to talk about, Flores, before we cut this episode for the end of part 2, 10-7 part 2, is tell us about the Officer Down Memorial page.
Okay, wow, this is fantastic. So I really like ODMP. It stands for the Officer Down Memorial Page. It's an app that you can get on at least Apple for sure.
You can get it on Android too. I've got it.
Okay, well, there you go. But I like ODMP. One of the things that I think is really cool, it's kind of, how do I word this? Certain people in my life hate it because you'll randomly get notifications that, this officer's been killed here
Yeah.
and there and here and there doing whatever things. But I really like it because it it gives you an accurate tally, at least in the United States and all its territories and whatnot.
Yeah.
That we can and do get killed doing anything from high speed chasing murderers to mundane, I'm going to go pick up this cat and put it in the shelter thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for like rookie cops and for everyone to kind of keep in mind that there's not anything that we do that someone else in our own country, that's not even talking about the rest of the world, hasn't been killed doing the exact same fucking thing. And it sounds bad, but they do a lot of good things. ODMP, it puts faces to names because like you're going to see stuff on headlines and things, but it puts faces to names and it tells you how they died, what they were doing. It tells you years of service, who killed them, if they were killed that way or like a car accident. It gives you statistics where it's like, hey, this percentage was killed by gunfire, this percentage by medical or fucking auto vehicle related, whatever. I like ODMP for a multitude of reasons, and it's a good way to kind of, because we've had our own officer put on there for COVID related death. But I like that it kind of forever has a spot for them to be like, hey, these are the people that didn't make it. Yeah. And that is sad.
It memorializes to a degree men and women who gave their life doing the job. Yeah.
And you, of course, just like anything else, you can donate to them to kind of keep them doing what they do. You can buy their merch, that sort of thing. You can also go in there and that's what we did too. Like when we reached out to him for our other officer, we're like, hey, this is how he died. This is his name, whatever. Like they do all the work to reach out to the agencies and try to get everything as accurate as possible and put respectful stuff up there and let you have something from them. They even, when they did that tour for the year that our officer died, they came down here physically. And they gave us coins and t-shirts and they showed us their trailer and they put like all of the faces and all of the names of everyone that was killed that year on that trailer.
Throughout the nation,
throughout the nation on that trailer. And they go to every agency where they had that death and you get to look at your person on that trailer.
You get to read about that officer.
And all the other ones. Like it's a really cool program. Like it's sad again because like you'll be sitting there peacefully having breakfast or something and then
you get a notification.
Las Vegas officer killed by gunfire, during domestic or whatever the fuck. And it is sad, but I kind of, I don't know. It's a good way to honor them. And a good way for you to always kind of keep in mind that like, there's fun times and stuff and we get to do some cool things and some sad things. But it's ultimately a very dangerous job and you can get killed doing anything.
Absolutely. One of the things I like about the ODMP app is that whenever that does happen where you're having a great time eating breakfast with your family and then you get a notification or whatever, it's sad and I hate it, but at the same time, it's a constant reminder for me that like, hey, like I'm in the good times right now and like I need to soak this up and enjoy it and I need to stay sharp.
Or more appreciative. Yeah. Because you're like, it's a bit sobering because you're like, oh, fuck, I could have been like this guy. I literally went to a call just like this the other day. Yep. So, I think the most recent one, we'll do this. And in no way, shape, or form are we sponsoring them or they sponsored us.
No, we just like them.
We just like them. Yeah. Like, that's all it is. But on Christmas Day, and they do corrections officers as well. That's what this is. Yeah. On Christmas Day, corrections officer Andrew Lansing with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections was killed. He died after being assaulted by an inmate on Christmas morning around 7:30 a.m. at the Ross Correctional Institution. The inmate went into the prison yard and attacked Officer Lansing, who was working in the middle of the yard by himself. Officer Lansing was transported to the Ohio State University, this hospital where he died from severe head trauma. The inmate was transferred to a different facility, a maximum security prison in this place, while the other correctional facility that he was in was put under restricted movement and the investigation was opened. He was charged with aggravated murder. Officer Lansing was a United States Army veteran and had served with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction for over 24 years. He is survived by his wife, 2 children, 3 sisters, and 3 brothers. He was 62 years old at the time of his death. So yeah, like this
62.
yeah, this
Mhm.
dude was real close to retirement, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Minding his own fucking business.
On Christmas morning.
He was a veteran at some point, so he was probably a
Served the country,
veteran.
yeah.
Yeah, during fucking Vietnam, probably,
Mhm.
or like one of the other fucking. Well, no, what? No,
Maybe not Vietnam,
not
but
Nam.
yeah,
Not Nam. Yeah, sorry.
probably it could have been any other.
Yeah,
number of
there's any other thing,
conflicts.
but like
Yeah.
he's doing some other shit. Like he had previous service, and he could have been killed doing whatever the fuck he was doing then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But no, he dies later on in his life while he's minding his own fucking business on Christmas morning when he's old as shit, just
working.
working.
Golly.
And that's when,
What a
but you get the
shame.
point. So it's real sad, but
Mhm.
it's a good way for.
I like it too though, because like people like us in this room, like we care about like what our corrections officers are doing every day.
Oh yeah,
But the general population, I feel like a lot of people don't. And so if no one else really cares, like it's a cool app too, because like for those who do care, like you can actually hear about that, something you might not have otherwise heard of, and it's just a way to like for some in some form or fashion for this person's legacy to be known to others, like so.
and so like you can even go in here and look at by state, by times, whatever. It's really cool. But for the entire country, ever since I became a cop in 2017 till now, there's been 2,306 officers killed.
2,000.
It's a lot.
Yep.
Well, I know that. So I like the statistics on ODMP as well. Now I know that there's like the anti-cop, the cop haters of the world.
Yeah.
Often point out that like, oh, law enforcement's not actually so dangerous. Like they act like they're in all this danger, but they're not even in the top 10 like most the top 10 professions with the most fatalities. And that I looked that up, and that actually is true.
Yeah.
But I think that they're not accounting for a lot of important variables. Like there's jobs like the construction industry has a lot of fatalities.
Oh yeah.
But it's a very large industry, and there's a lot of accidental death and negligent related deaths.
No one's actively trying to kill you
Yeah,
when
and
you're,
that's-
when you're building
that's the
a
biggest
house.
conception.
Yes, and that's that's the big difference is like law enforcement and military are going to have the highest rates in any profession of being intentionally killed by their human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's a very different situation.
And neither of those have something where it's like, hey, these are the statistics for suicides as a direct result of your job as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
This
yeah,
is
that's
just
another factor.
on duty related stuff,
Yeah.
directly the result of
Yeah,
cop world stuff.
yeah,
And like in
exactly.
2024, if this is up to date, because we're just barely into the new year, there were 144 killed this year, which is actually down from
Mhm.
other
Really?
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yep. So there you go.
Yep. Well,
ODMP.
ODMP, check them out. Download the app. Support them financially or any other way that you feel called to do.
Keep those stories alive. Keep those
Yeah.
men and women alive
Exactly.
via
basically.
their memory. And
I'm gonna be pissed as fuck if I
story.
get killed someday. And y'all motherfuckers don't run around telling people like, Flora's kind of a bitch, but like she did this and this.
ODMP is gonna call you a he.
It's okay.
Yeah, on your tombstone, like here rests Kiley Flores. He was a great friend.
It's okay. I give you guys permission to put that on my tombstone, and I give ODMP permission to put that on shit. I think it'd be funny.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks.
I want there to be pictures though of my life-saving awards, so that way they know what the fuck. Like clearly, it's a he.
The law enforcement historians in the next 200 years are going to be so confused trying to figure out your history. Like,
I'm gonna be one of those legends.
yeah, they're like little is known about the legendary law person known as Kiley Flores.
A law person.
But yeah.
Good times. Okay, well, I think that wraps 1023 podcast episode 107 part 2 with Kiley Flores. Kiley, do you have anything else to add?
No, sorry, it's not really that funny, but kind of figured it wasn't gonna be based on the subject matter.
No, this one, I mean, this is bound to happen with episode 107, but when we come back for part 3, it probably we'll probably be more back to our normal shenanigans and stupidity, so
That'd be cool.
yeah.
Also, I'm sorry this is terribly long. I know you wanted to get.
No, this has been very, very good. Well,
Okay.
this always, literally every episode we've done with
Yeah.
any guest for any topic has always been like, yeah, we'll sit down for a couple hours and figure it out.
6 hours later.
Yeah, 6
Exactly.
hours
Yeah.
later.
And
I'm
I'm
so
okay with
sorry.
that because it's always great.
Yeah,
So,
it just means the discussion and the conversation
Yeah.
is just so
Yeah.
good.
well,
I
and if the
know.
discussion wasn't good and everything, like we'd be like an hour in, be like, all right, well, that's all the time we have for today. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
but
pretty much.
Yeah.
yeah, no, but this has been super good. So,
All right.
without further ado, signing
Right.
off. Okay. Do you want to make your owl noise?
Oh, was owl or just?
Whatever bird noise you make.
Oh fuck!
Ooh, that was a good one.
That was a pretty good one. That wasn't too bad.